Welcome to the Service Provision Committee meeting of the 20th of September, rescheduled from the 12th. I think prior to us starting, I wondered whether or not we might want to just do a minute's silence. This is the first meeting back since obviously what's gone on over the last couple of weeks or week and a half. So, is everybody okay to perhaps
Stand
you got to stand up? Yeah. Okay, so we got a right. Okay, fantastic. Okay. Okay, I think that's a minute. Thank you, everybody. Okay, the first item on the agenda is public question time, but we don't have any members of the public present this evening. So we'll move on to the next section, which is Public Bodies Admission to Meetings Act 1960, amended by the Openness of Local Government Bodies Regulation 2014. As local and parish and town council meetings can now be recorded, the chairman to check if anybody wishes to record the meeting to ensure reasonable facilities can be provided. The officer will be recording the meeting in video format for upload to the parish council's YouTube channel. No, I'll take it nobody wants to record. Next item on the agenda is apologies and reasons for absence. Any apologies for absence with reasons received by the clerk will be circulated by email prior to the meeting in line with the previous resolution. These will be considered together. So has everybody seen the apologies that we've got?
Just saying now, yeah. Can I raise well, it's just a question on this, because at another meeting that I was at, this idea that people can get 6 months in advance, and I know we've done it for a number of councillors, and obviously I'm not questioning the fitness of Councillor Hall to be here tonight, because I know she's ill, as we know how other councillors have been. Are we allowed to do this? And it's just a technical question for the chair, because I know for the clerk, because somebody challenged whether we were even able to do that.
Written dispensations, yes.
So it is okay to work. I think it seems to make sense in these circumstances. I just wanted to check that that's
so they've asked for 6 months from the date they are approved or approved by a committee, if it's come to a committee first or full council.
Yeah.
So this particular dispensation, I think, is also being noted at full council.
Okay, that's fine. Lovely. Just remember somebody challenging it. I can't remember what that outcome was.
So, are we all happy to accept the apologies that we've received?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great stuff. Members and officers' personal and disclosable pecuniary interests in items on the agenda. Members and officers' personal and disclosable pecuniary interests in terms of agenda to be reported to the committee for consideration. To consider members and official disclosable pecuniary interests in items on the agenda. Well, I've got a couple to declare, unless somebody wants to mention theirs first, if we've got any.
Well, I've got a general one, in that, due to the nature of my new job, I am aware of these organisations, and some of them I have spoken to.
Okay.
I'm not involved with any, I'm not a trustee of any of them, I'm not a decision maker in any of them, so it's not, I just want the committee to be aware that I've got extra knowledge, if you like, about these organisations because the nature of my day job really. But I'm not directly involved, so I don't think it is a disclosable
You don't
interest.
have a financial interest here, so.
But I mean, obviously some of these, and these organisations have been discussed as part of the Kirklees Youth Alliance work that I'm involved with as well. So it's just to note that really, but if you hear me, it sounds like I know a lot more than you might, it's because of that there's not, I'm not involved directly.
If you were to decline interest, Chair, that would mean we would not be quorum up for the votes,
Okay.
because there's only 3 of us here, isn't it? That's correct, Jen?
I think you can declare an interest, but it's up to the committee to decide, you know. You're not suggesting you absent yourself from decisions.
Well, the two disclosable items are personal items, and that's for Friends of Bonnie Library. I'm a trustee on their charitable. I can't remember what the INO stands for.
You're unpaid though?
I'm unpaid, yeah.
Okay, good. I think that's one thing we could maybe
So-
see in a favour, perhaps.
Okay, cool. And the other thing is I'm on the sort of management board, if you like to call it that, with Honley Youth, just by dint of me being a parish councillor and wanting to have somebody for the parish councillor on board. Obviously they apply for grants and things, so whether or not, I don't know, I'll take your advice, Jen, as to whether I'll be able to vote on.
Again, it's an unpaid role where.
Okay.
Okay. So, and I know that you weren't at the last Friends of Honley Library trustee meeting, so you haven't.
No, I wasn't, no.
Yes.
I wasn't, no.
Yeah.
It would be preferable if you didn't have to vote on it, but it needs both. And I think because you're not getting paid for either of the roles, I think
Well, if
you don't have financial interest.
if I was to abstain, then I guess
I suppose you could
that'd
stay on
still
the
be
vote, couldn't
okay.
you? Yeah, I think that'd be okay. As long as we both agree.
Okay. Written requests for new DPI dispensations. So I think one revised DPI. So that's the one from me, is it, Jen?
Yes.
So I think it was included with the most recent papers. My slight change. I've included Honley Youth. I'm no longer a member of the RCN, so. Okay, are we all okay with those?
Yeah.
Items on the agenda to discuss in private session. The committee to consider whether any items on the agenda should be discussed in private session. So we think there are any?
Chair, if I can advise, no, I don't think there is anything that needs discussing in private session on the agenda tonight, and certainly regarding the grants, they need to be in open session.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you. Minutes of previous Service Provision Committee meeting. The minutes of the previous meeting of the Service Provision Committee held on the 7th of June 2022, numbered 22301 to 22322, inclusive, were approved at full council on the 11th of July. So these are just to note, so we're all happy to
No,
note those. Okay, great stuff. Budgetary matters. Service Provision Committee budget and spending statements for 22-23. Under the standing orders, the Service Provision Committee makes financial decisions for a number of community assets and projects. A number of items on the agenda have financial implications for the budget, not least the consideration of grant applications. Therefore, the budget 22-23 Service Provision income and expenditure year to date is being shared to clarify the availability of funds prior to consideration of agenda items. So that's to note. Are we okay to note that?
Noted.
The next item on the agenda is expenditure for service provision budget. The clerk has been in correspondence with Kirklees to indicate that the Home Valley Parish Council will most likely want to repeat its arrangement from last year, that a total of 5 lit trees using Existing ground sockets and power supplies are provided by Kirklees for Holmfirth, traditionally Kirklees has not charged for this one, Brockholes, Netherthorne, Newmill and Wooldale. It's been requested that the Holmfirth tree be lit at a light switch on event provisionally planned for the 26th of November 2022 and that no metal barriers are placed around the tree. The total cost last year of the trees from Kirklees was £3,448. HVPC has also paid the cost of 5 cut trees for Hinchcliffe Mill, Homebridge, Honley, Scoles and Upperthorne. £5,500 is available for the expenditure through budget line 4705 Christmas provision. Grant requests related to this budget from Holmfirth Christmas Team and Honley Business Association are due to be considered later in the meeting. So, we've got something to think about and consider. The Christmas Day expenditure of approximately 3,488, which is an estimate, for 5 lit cut trees supplied by Kirklees, for Holmfirth, Brockholes, Netherthorne, Newmill and Wooldale, and the cost of 5 cut trees for Hinchcliffe Mill, Homebridge, Honley, Scoles and Upperthorne.
Okay, so Chair, I did mean to find out how much those cut trees for Hinchcliffe Mill, Homebridge, Honley, Scoles and Upperthorne cost last year, and I've forgotten to do that entirely, I've just realised. I will email out to Service Provision Committee members the cost last year of those 5 cut trees. I know when I was discussing it with Rich not last week, the week before, his thoughts were we'll probably go a little bit over the budget, and some of that money will therefore have to come from general reserves if we're going to provide the same amount of Christmas provision as was provided last year.
Tom?
So it was around about 3,448 last year for the trees from Kirklees and for the trees that we bought else in. So that will leave about £2,002 left over for Holmfirth lights and for Honley lights. So 1,000 each, which will leave us £2 extra, which is might be running it a little bit closer because Kirklees are quite a bit up in their fees, electricity will be costing more and things like that. So would it be worth suggesting that we need on the top side about another 500 just to make sure we've got enough, or 250? Should we say like 500 from reserves, and then that should definitely cover it, rather than go for a low park estimate and not cover it?
I think better to overestimate than perhaps 250, you know, and they're asking for another 300 quid. I think probably 500 if we think that's a likely.
I think
there's a likely ceiling.
I'd rather go big than go low.
Yeah,
and based on what Doug said earlier about not needing funds for play areas, we've got quite a bit of money left over that we can move over from one budget head into another.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that we move it over from that budget head into the other one. 500, but hopefully we wouldn't need to spend that much. Hopefully it might be like 100 or 200 more max. So that's my proposal.
Well, it's similar point to Tom's. There seems to be enough money there, assuming prices haven't gone up. But there's every chance they are going up, and they could go up considerably because of the utility bills, couldn't they? So, do we even need to set that request on the reserves, or can that go in once we know? How confident, when do you think we'd be able to find out from the council? Because the council might not even know themselves
Well, exactly.
what they think they might want to charge this year. But obviously, we shouldn't spend money we haven't got, but
Yeah.
I just don't know how we get out of the hole, because I think there's every chance it could
So we don't. In order to access that reserve, we'll need to speak to full council.
It would come from general reserves,
Okay.
so it would have to be something from full council,
Okay.
yes. The other issue is, just to be absolutely clear, we didn't get all of our trees from Kirklees last year. It was the trees at Brockholes, Netherthorne, Holmfirth, Newmill and in Wooldale that was covered by the 3,448 we spent on that. We also purchased 5 other cut trees for Hinchliffe Mill, Homebridge, Conley's Grove and Upperthon. So we will definitely go over budget, there is no doubt about that. If I remember rightly, I think that the trees cost something like £50 to £70 each for providing these cut trees for the villages. So
the supplier of those trees wasn't Kirklees, was it? It
No.
was.
No, it's normally we use Tim Kirk,
Yeah,
it is,
yeah.
so that's somewhere we use. That's what we used before.
And then, just to remind me, do the people who were associated with lights in those particular parts of the Home Valley, do they arrange
They
for the installation of it?
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
yeah,
okay.
so the council, Home Valley Parish Council pays for the trees
Mm,
and has the trees delivered, but then it's up to each village
okay.
to decorate and look after the
Yeah,
tree.
okay. So, do we need to make a proposal about a specific amount, or do we need to ask the full council to release the necessary amount of money from the reserve to cover the cost of these? We've got enough to cover the trees from Kirklees, haven't we?
We have, yes.
Mm.
I did ask Kirklees to get back to me if they thought there was going to be any increase in cost, but at that stage, all they were looking for was initial interest, and they weren't able to give a price, which is understandable. So it's difficult. I mean, £500 might cover it if the Kirklees cost hasn't gone up, but I think we're anticipating that may well have gone up.
Should we say 1,000 then, just to be ultra safe?
Do you think that
I'm happy with that.
1,000 then? So, are you proposing that we ask for £1,000 from general reserve be transferred to the Christmas trees budget at the next full council meeting?
And then that we approve the purchase of the trees from Kirklees and from the other source for the other villages.
Yeah.
So that, but hopefully it won't come anywhere near £1,000. I think we're saying that we're just doing this because we don't know, and
Yeah.
we don't know how much a Christmas tree costs anymore.
Well, I mean, we're on, you know, price increases are much less predictable at the moment.
It might be more next week than it was this week, or
Absolutely.
yeah.
Might have to be much smaller trees.
Yeah.
So do we think that there's, I'm a bit, when I've looked at this, I was a bit surprised that Honley aren't one of the ones that get a Kirklees tree, but but I'm assuming these are all old historic things, and where there's groups of volunteers that do it, and so they just want to do what they've always done and get what they've always had.
I think with Honley before, we've actually given them money to buy their own trees.
Yeah.
We got them a tree once and they didn't like it, I think it was very good.
Right.
So I don't know if we just give Honley the money and they go and get their own tree from elsewhere or
We're
not.
providing a cut tree according to that,
But it's...
Well, we provide money to Tim Kirk, and I know he is very good at liaising with Honley in particular to make sure they get the tree that they want.
They're very picky in Honley.
If this were, I'm happy to support the current arrangement, and there's obviously an issue with pressure if we can put in a request for the extra money. But I think it seems, it's a nice thing that we do, and I'd like to think we carry on doing it if we can afford to do it.
Yeah.
So I suppose.
It's a bit, right, me too. Okay. So we're on to the grant applications now. So the first one is, and I think we've probably got more, in terms of the total amount of people requesting grants for today's committee meeting, it's more than we've got in the reserve, isn't it? In the budget.
It is for some of the budgets. For this first one, in fact, can I make some general comments about the grants this time? Thank you. So we extended the deadline to the end of August, and we were still receiving applications up to the deadline, and some of them did need further consultation in review and amendment, really, before they've got to this stage. I'm very aware that the grants process is under review with the Working Party. I want to express my thanks to Rich, the Deputy Clerk, for the publicity he's given the grants this time. Undoubtedly, the youth services budget is the one that's being most called upon. £13,636 pounds worth of grants requested, but only £8,000 in the budget. And yeah, so that's my sort of general observations. Regarding this particular one, this is quite straightforward in as much as there is £1,000 in the budget line and what's been asked for is £1,000. Last year though, this grant wasn't called upon at all. I was then tasked with chasing up the patient transport scheme to see if they still wanted to claim against it, and hence this particular application has been forthcoming. But I know there are some question marks as to whether this is really a Home Valley wide service or whether it's more about a service for patients at Honley Surgery. So it could well be that the committee wants to ask for a report that addresses how widely the offer is made across the valley and what the take-up is, maybe for future consideration. But we've got the grant application as it is, the money is there, and that's what they've asked for.
I suspect that they didn't come for it last year because of COVID.
Yes, yeah, could well be.
Might not be running it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure in dredging up my memory of this particular issue in the past, I thought that this patient transport scheme covered the 2 GP surgeries in Holmfirth as well as Honley Surgery. I'm not 100% sure, so I would support the idea of asking the patient transport charity to contact us with a report.
Yeah.
I think they were doing before, and as well, like, there was concerns about them not just using passages from the Home Valley, but passengers from further afield and things like that. But the majority, I think, at the top of my head before, when they used to give us a report of the numbers of people doing different things, it's a bit disappointing, the grant application actually. It's very basic, it's just the bones. There's nothing to flesh it out. And she's been in before and spoken to us about it. But I think at the moment it's quite important to keep something like this going, especially with the cost of living crisis. Some people might not be able to afford to get a taxi now, or do different things like that, and it's still important to get to the doctors. So rather than see this like not run, I'd be happy to put some money towards it, keep it going. And if it's in the budget as well, we're budgeted for it, the lines are, yeah, I'm about to propose that we give them the grant.
I agree with that, but I have got a number of concerns about it. I've happened to be privy to a meeting where this was discussed, because I attend some of the PCM meetings, and it was clear from my recollection that all the surgeries weren't aware of it or weren't using it and had forgotten about it.
All right, okay.
And maybe that's because you've got changes of staff and some people might not remember and all those other types of things. And the other thing is, when I looked at the application that's not redacted, pretty much all the staff, I think, are employees of the organisation, so I was a bit surprised to see they're a registered charity. But there's a lot of these historic arrangements that the parish has got, like we have with the minibus scheme, that we've always done it, we always do the same thing. And I'm just keen that we at least ask them, well, who did you transport, what difference did it make, and how it's, so we just haven't got that.
Do you mean feedback from patients about?
Well, not so much from the patients, just from the organisation themselves, just to say, yeah, but this, because it seems like they're funding a salary of, they're heavily subsidising it themselves, because there's a salary cost of 12 grand in there. We're only putting £1,000 towards it, and the turnover for the project's 14 grand, so there's a lot of other money going into it.
I think the other doctors put some money, put some money into it, and I think
I can see the value of it.
I think they do ask for the donations from the patients as well. They do use it, but I totally understand what you're saying.
So I think it'd be helpful to get a better insight, particularly if we're going to renew this next year, to know what it does and what we're getting and what our contribution.
Especially with being a new council next year as well.
Yeah.
The new council sat here in this meeting thinking, some of them might be thinking, what is this? We don't know what it is. It'd be good for them to report to us, we should have had something Or is there anything at the only charity commission's website there? Is there,
Just had to register charity with a number on it.
Well, it tells you the trustees as well.
I'm
which
just wondering
seems
if
to be-
there's an annual report or anything like that on there or anything, but there might be stuff, but there are many details in that. But I still think I would rather have it going than not going personally.
Yeah, I'm not saying,
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't fund it, I just think we need to say, we don't.
I think probably when we write to the Homley Surgery, who seem to be kind of in control of kind of managing it, maybe we ask them that, you know, when we come to consider next year's application, we'd like a report, and what would be really good would be if somebody from the Patient Transport Service or Homley Surgery would come and speak to the committee about how effective it is and how useful it is having it there for the people of the Home Valley.
Yep.
Because I think, you know, if they've been before, then I know people's time's precious, but it's useful. And they get it every year from us, don't they? So.
Did nobody say they were attending today? I'm just thinking, should I
No.
just check downstairs and no one waiting downstairs or anything like that? 'Cause we've had that happen before.
I've not had any feedback, mostly I've had negatives, but I mean, obviously with it being rearranged.
Okay, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Okay. So the next item is the Christmas provision. The current balance is £5,500, and there are two items to think about for Christmas provision. So a grant application for Homley Business Association, application enclosed for £1,000 to Homley Christmas events. The legal power for this would be the Local Government Act 1972. So, any thoughts, anybody, on this one?
Other than I thought it was a good application, it was really clear what they're asking for. They're putting 50% of, they're basically saying the whole thing costs £2,000, they're asking us for £1,000. It's neatly broken down, they've done it loads of times before, it's a great event.
Yeah.
I don't have any concerns with
And
it.
it's always been a really popular event in Homley.
It's excellent. I
Yeah.
when I was chairman of the council, and I went and helped out. I mean, the first year they did it, I was stewarding of it.
Yeah.
And it's really good. So,
There's some good Christmas events in Homley. There's the Christmas market organised by
yeah.
HBA, and there's this really. It's a real positive community thing, and good for local businesses as well.
Yep. Should we propose that we give them the full amount?
Yeah, I agree. All
Yeah.
three of us agree with that. So,
General point out on these, you know, we went through and there was still some outstandings that you would check. So will you flag it if there's, if those have, because some of them have got missing accounts or there was various issues, but
there's nothing left that's outstanding.
Right.
Everything we asked for, that I got back to them about for part of the financial check has been provided.
on all of them, not only,
On all of them.
Oh, right, that's
Yeah,
good.
there's nothing outstanding.
because me and Jen went through like a diligence check, I suppose you call it, or what you call it, went through every application to check that we'd got the things that we required, and there were still a few that were trickling in, shall we say. But anyway, they're all there, that's fine.
so the second, sorry, Douglas. The second item is to consider a grant application for Home First Christmas Christmas team application enclosed for £1,000 towards Home First Christmas events. The legal power for this would be the Local Government Act 1972, Section 144. Any thoughts about this one? I'm quite happy with it.
Very similar, I mean, it's a different scale, and they're asking the money specifically for the replacement lights, but that seems to be, they obviously know what they're doing, and they organise it well, don't they?
They did an excellent job. The Christmas before it was the business association who took it on, and it was a bit of a shambles at times. But the Christmas team have taken it on and they're doing a really brilliant job with it. It's been a lot better since they took it on. And
We're going to extend the lights at the Christmas fire station, aren't they?
we should continue to support them over it. They're doing an excellent job.
Yeah.
So propose that we give them £1,000.
Yeah. Second that. That's that one done. Okay, so the next one is from the youth facilities budget. The current balance is £8,000, and I think with this this is the one where it goes over, is that right, Jim?
Yeah,
There's one for
Yeah,
4,000 and something, isn't there? Yeah. With 2 for 4. All right, okay.
yeah,
Right.
so all together, taking all the grants applying to the youth facilities, we're well over budget. This particular one is asking for 1,000 and it's towards training for 5 scouts within the Scout Jamboree.
So how do we want to take this? Do we want to think that we'll divvy it up proportionally, or
Well, sorry, Joe, I thought the best thing to do is discuss them all in turn and agree whether in principle we want to support it, and then have a discussion about how we can
okay?
split the money.
Good stuff.
Because some of them, and this first one's an example of that. I'm not sure again whether Jen managed to get hold of Pat, but some of them could go to, as a small grant instead and be transferred to finance. £1,000 request like this one.
Didn't hear back from Pat as Chair of Finance, but that is still certainly a possibility. Of course, there's no guarantees if things go to finance and management, but it is certainly the case that they have had fewer grant applications for the whole of the project and events budget. So,
Yeah.
you know, they've certainly got more spare money than this committee has with this particular budget.
So
Because this group's actually checked, sorry for talking about the first one, it's actually ticked 2 boxes anyway, hasn't it? It's actually ticked the community services box and the community events and projects box. So we could say we're not considering it as part of this scheme, but we'd ask finance to consider it as part of their scheme. Because there's a couple that are just £1,000 that fit very neatly into that scheme, that takes £2,000 pressure off this pot.
So rather than come off new facilities, I can agree with that actually. It's finance next week, isn't it? As well, so it should come under, if Rich puts it onto the agenda, adds it in there, we can have maybe still go to full council with it in a couple of weeks and we go through.
Technical question for Jen, with all the flipping of the dates, is that still possible to do that legally within your timelines and plans?
Yes, because finance and management is a week tomorrow, so the agenda doesn't need, you know, I've still got time to talk to Rich about the agenda, and we have had a discussion about that today. The fact that, you know, he knows I'm going to be contacting him
Right,
tomorrow.
So the Scouts one then, we're going to refer it to F&M for next week. Is everybody happy to do that?
I think so. I mean, I'd like to say that I'd support, I did have a conversation about this because we're looking at the new rules for the new grant criteria. And one of the things we're considering is saying we wouldn't give a grant to an individual. Now this sort of is individual, but there's 5 individuals, but it's very much for their own individual benefit, although, but there is 5 of them. So anyway, and that isn't even a rule at the moment, so that I think it does hit within our rules. It's a great thing that those people are going to do. And it's not a lot of money, and they're raising huge amounts of money themselves, aren't they?
And it does mention how Scouts attending these kind of events often means that they're going to volunteer in
Absolutely,
Scouts,
yeah.
and that's going to be hopefully to the benefit of the Home Valley and people who attend Scout type groups in the Home Valley. Sorry, Tom.
Well, we've had them go before. The group applying for the grant is the Home Valley District Scouts. So it's not an individual applying, so we can get around that one there. And they're representing the Home Valley when they go to these jamborees.
Yeah.
So that with our flag and all that stuff and spreading the word of what they are, what they're doing. And we generally have supported them before, and they come back and give us a detailed report every time when they come back. And it's brilliant what they do. And they go out there and it's good experience, and like if they pass on the experience and the knowledge and what they've done from the jamborees, it benefits the area. And I think the Scouts in general benefit the area. Only on Sunday I was down at the parking up in the sands for the food festival. They were organising down there. Like the guy who's involved with it, Alan Whitman, I remember him being involved with the Scouts when I was in the Scouts, and that's a very long time ago. So it's some of these people that have done some amazing work over the years and doing good work for the kids. And if we can give money towards them as an incentive to help them out with going on this, it's keeping them doing good things as well. So
Definitely,
I'm very much in favour of it.
yeah, yeah.
So, and I think I'd like to think finance would be as well. So maybe we can suggest that. We suggest that finance accept it.
So can we refer it to
Yeah.
next week's FNM? Thank you. So the next item is to consider a grant application from Holly Youth. This is the one that I've connected with, under the guise of Home Village Community Trust. So it's kind of like it's within the wings or under the wings of Home Valley Community Trust. Application enclosed for £1,000 towards training workshops for young people. The legal power for this would be the Local Government and Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1976, Section 19. Any thoughts?
Trying to think what I thought specifically about this one. I mean, my general views on all these, I think they're great projects. Me and Jen actually attended a meeting last week that Margaret Dale had called about youth work in the valley.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, neither Hunley Youth, Cafe 100, the Phoenix Project, any of the youth organisations that deliver in the valley were there. But Charles Bruce was there, and
Was that because it was at a time during the day, I
it
guess?
was an afternoon meeting.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, and I know a lot of these are run by volunteers or the people who are part-time workers, aren't they? But one of the problems is it's just the unsustainability of all of this. You know, the Hunley project, the yearly annual costs for it are quite expensive. There's a few others coming up, and they've only asked for a fraction of the money or only 3 months' money. And so my general concern about these is it's great that we support it, but they need more money and they need a much more sustainable arrangement really than just this hand-to-mouth funding. So, you know, as it is, I support it, but I just think we need as a parish to work with them to try and think of a more sustainable way of.
Well,
We talked about putting them onto almost like a contract arrangement, so they know each year they're going to get X thousand, and then they can use that to leave for another money.
I don't know in particular Holly Youth, they do seek other pots of money from different funders.
Yeah.
Kirklees, I think they've even used, they've paid for an organisation that helps find funds for organisations like youth, Holly Youth. So I think they're pretty on the ball really, because I think there's a lot. The Honley Village Community Trust and HBA, there's a bit of an overlap of people in those organisations, and they've got a lot of experience in grant applications. So I get where you're coming from, but I think they are pretty decent at ensuring that they've got enough money to run whatever the plan really.
I think one of the other confusions, sorry Tom, one of the other confusions with this application was the finances don't really. What's happened is when you look at the finances section, Home Valley Village Community Trust have told us about their turnover and their expenditure, but most of the Hunley Youth activity, when we look back in the accounts, it's not really in the accounts. What you see in the accounts is a bunch of money disappearing from out of the Hunley Business Association accounts, out of the organisation, don't you?
Yeah, I've had a long conversation with Glenn Kirby about that, and I'm satisfied with what he's told me in terms of that financial check that we were carrying out. It is as you thought it would be,
Yeah.
to be honest, Doug's.
And I think the problem, so what would be really helpful is to see how much does Hunley Youth cost a year to run, its total costs. A bit like the Business Association have done for the trees. You can see it costs £2 grand, you can see what all the elements are, you can see where our outline's going. Whereas, because their accounts are tied in with the Community Association accounts, on the form it looks like their income's 56 grand, they spent 31, but that's nothing to do with this project, was it, Jen, when we looked at it? This was all pre-Hunley Youth, because it was the previous years. So this isn't their fault, this is just the nature of how the form is, and the fact you've got one one organisation applying for an activity that's a subset of it, what it does. Because it all happens under the same banner, doesn't it?
It does.
Like Friends of Holly does and Magdale Woods does and all things. And I think this is something more for the grants working group to look at on the application form, so we can see very clearly what are your project costs and where's it coming from. And they have talked about the project cost of £6 grand, but I know that in a year they spend way more than £6 grand because they've got all sorts of projects going on throughout the year. So I just didn't think it gave a very accurate picture of the scale of what they were doing. But I'm not saying that's their fault, I'm just saying that's...
The finances are not for them, just for them, is it? For the Civic Trust.
Yeah.
So it'd be good for them to get their own banking maybe, or so maybe make some
Well, I think they must be running their own bank account anyway, because money's being
They are.
transferred out of the business
That's
association
exactly
into
what's happening.
community trust into.
Yes, in just to say, so this isn't one which could be referred back to finance and management, because there are 2 other grant applications from Home Valley Community Trust being considered by finance and management, one for reef making and one for providing village services.
Okay, so I guess it's down to us really to think whether or not we, in principle, support the application. Obviously, at the end, you know, we'll look at how much money we've got to play with, and then maybe decide on amounts.
Yeah, well, I'll propose that we support it, you know, to the full extent we can.
Just looking, so it's maybe a stupid question, right? So we gave them 12,000 in 2020. There's nothing in 2021 and 2022 for this, 2021 for this group, but I'm not saying that's because of COVID. So there's 12,000 into 2020, and then it doesn't look like they've done anything since. I can't remember if we gave them anything last year. There's nothing on here. So it's
I think they withdrew their application at the last minute last year, that's what happened.
So they didn't have anything last year. So I suppose they had due some money off us. Well, you know what I mean.
I think that was the Project Sports thing that just ended up not happening, didn't it? For I think did they go out of business or something like that?
The person who was going to deliver it for them withdrew.
Oh, right, okay.
Because they didn't feel they could get someone in place,
Yeah.
so they just withdrew the application.
So we're not asking for the total cost of all these funds. So 12,775 is that probably about 75% of what the project cost is. How much money do we have in the budget for this one? The youth provision?
It's only 8,000.
8,000.
So
I think that we're thinking about maybe just deciding the ones that we feel we can decide on, and then when we decide on which grants we're gonna award, we'll look at the total at the end and then divvy it up.
okay, that's fine. We can come back to that. So we'll move on to the next one then.
Okay, so we're happy to accept that application and then consider the amount when we got to the end of every application that we've got this evening. Yeah.
We're just doing that for you, or we're doing that for all of them, because we've already accepted a few, haven't we, like the Christmas lights and that.
Yeah.
Well, the
it's just
Christmas
for the
lights
youth,
is not pressure on the budget, but apart from the pressure on
So it's only the youth ones we've done that to them, so we'll just go through the rest of them anyway.
Okay, good. So the next item is item 6, to consider a grant application for Oathworth Arts Festival application enclosed for £1,000 towards training young music makers. The legal power for this would be the Local Government Act 1972, section 45.
This is a very good grant form, isn't it? It's very detailed what they want to do, the programme and what it's going to be, who it's going to benefit. It's going to benefit local schools, community groups, 250 children and families involved in the parade. Audiences of thousands plus are expected in the streets and other events as well. It's a good event, it's spread over the year. I'm happy to accept it.
They've also applied to finance and management for a 1,000 projects and events grant for production costs. So again, it wouldn't, unfortunately, it's not one that you could easily refer on.
Okay.
I was going to ask about that then, because on this application in front of us, the box they've checked is the community events and projects budget.
They sort of had the 2 projects together, and we had a conversation about it.
So
has separated this out.
So they're coming to the parish effectively for 3,000 over 2 grant pots.
For 2,000,
2,000 here and 1,000 to finance.
It's a bit sneaky.
Or creative. I mean, my view on this one, why it's less of a priority for me, and this is a personal view. As I understand it, this pot was originally set up purely to support Cafe 100, to support what I think of as youth work, and as an ex-youth work, I think I've got a fairly clear idea what youth work is. And I think the Honda Youth Project and the Cafe 100 project are youth work. This isn't youth work, this is youth activity as part of an arts festival budget. It's a very different thing, but the problem is we haven't got any criteria that are really clear. So whatever my personal views are, for me it doesn't hit bang on the priority for what this pot was about, but we haven't got any, there's no specific criteria for the youth activities budget. There has to be revenue costs for ongoing work. It doesn't say that. So I think they're within their rights to apply. As Tom said, it's a good application. As you would expect, because this organisation turns over a lot of money. It's got some very, very savvy bid writers. It's less of a priority for me if I was to try and prioritise them. But I wouldn't say it can't go forward for consideration.
Yeah, I agree with that actually. It should go from a different budget. I didn't realise all these were just from youth, so yeah, and I agree with that.
Well, it depends. Well, you might remember, Tom, why there was originally that youth budget was set aside.
Originally it was a very small budget. It had something like about £2,000 in, which would be £1,000 would go to Cafe 100, and then there'd be another group of come and ask us, and then we'd just give them a small amount of money out of it. The budget has increased substantially in the last 2 or 3 years, and Mary was instrumental in that, thinking she was doing more for the youth and people within the valley, and that's why it's expanded as it has. But as you say, like with a lot of these grant applications, it depends how you interpret what it is. Like I said, I don't understand as youth, so I could say it's more for younger children, isn't it?
Yeah. If you actually look at what they're asking us for on the breakdown, 1,000 of the 2,000s for a road closure, first aid, security, site safety manager, and a PA and sound. None of that's youth work.
The event is for youth, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
For kids.
it's a training for music makers, and that's the bit that we're considering, or you're considering here in this meeting.
So the other part's going to finance it.
Yes.
And that's the training for the
Yeah, well,
Does
is
that
that
make
here for
sense?
1,000 or 2,000? Because
They're here at this committee for 1,000.
Oh, for the
Another
other two,
1,000
yeah,
is
okay.
going to go to finance and management.
okay, sorry, I didn't really, because I thought this was an application to us for 2, and they've gone, right, so this 2,000 split
Yes.
across those, because the other 2 much more clearly are about face-to-face work with young people, aren't they?
Yes.
So are we saying that we would like to award them something?
I think I would actually, 'cause it's for young people and it's music makers. The event is primarily for young people doing the parade and all that stuff. And it's a good event for kids. Something they'll always remember doing something like that. So, and I think we can do it from this budget, but I kind of get what Doug's means as well. That it's not really.
Okay.
It's not how Doug sees youth expenditure, which I kind of see. Depends how you interpret it, I suppose.
Yeah, I think this is just another arts project, and I don't mean that in a negative way about just another arts project, I support the arts projects. But it's, like the folk festival could come and say we're going to do a violin workshop with kids, can we have it out of the youth pot? Well, I think it should really come out of the events pot. But anyway,
Maybe we need to have a clear criteria for what youth facilities means and what our criteria for making an application is. Yeah. I mean, you can't really blame people for
no, absolutely.
coming to us for a grant when it is a youth-related activity. Okay, I'll move on to item 7. To consider grant application from Home Bridge Cricket Club. Application enclosed for £1,385 towards training and coaching for junior cricketers. The legal power for this would be local government and Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1976, Section 19. I think Albury Cricket Club have a sort of fairly frequent applicants, aren't they, for grants?
They've done a few
Yeah,
before,
they had
yeah.
5,000 to enable, in 2020 they had 5,000 to enable phase 3 of our accessibility project, which was about an accessible footpath around the ground.
They might have had roller as well at some point, or something like that. They might have had some other things.
But I think didn't they do some sort of refurbishment to their
Yeah.
house, and
Yeah.
and that grant for the path was like secondary to that, but they'd had some things towards the refurbishment of the clubhouse before, I think.
I mean, I thought this one was again an ideal one to go to finance because it's all equipment. I mean, it's great what they do. They're obviously playing, you know, sport. They've got a junior cricket group, and this is all equipment for the junior cricket team. So again, you know, I'd support it, but I think if finance have got the budget, I'd rather they use one of their spare thousands to pay this than we took it out of our eight.
Shower installation. Is that really?
Oh, I hadn't spotted that one actually. I'd only seen one.
Yeah, that's down at the bottom, isn't it? That's not really.
No.
That's just something to do with the changing
Yeah.
rooms, isn't it? Well, we could possibly fund everything like up for like the equipment. So all the equipment is like for. Well, is it even stuff that for the kids training or the adult training they're using some of this equipment as well? They might be using plastic bats, but they might be using.
It says 16 to 18-year-olds and all women and girl cricketers.
Benefit out of. So I think there is some. I would be supportive of this one because it's helping them with the equipment. There might be some new stuff, and it's going to be used for them. So, did it say anything about the showering the other day? Or?
I hadn't spotted the showers, just tagged on at the end. Yeah, that was part of their improvements to the change. I'd like to finish this space by fitting a shower in the room. So this is in the women's changing area. We've created a safe area where women can change in privacy. I'd like to finish this space by fitting a shower.
Yeah, it sounds like something that they had to do quite a few with cricket clubs before. It was home and away. Like, but then now, like, because there's girls playing some of the junior teams and they need their own separate changing spaces, don't they? So I think I know of another cricket club that's doing some work on their pavilion as well, which we might be getting grants for next year. So it's just modernisation. It's good. It needs this kind of thing, doesn't it? So,
But would that be an appropriate thing to come out of a grant to the youth club? I guess we could specify, you know, but it doesn't. It covers only the equipment, so.
like I said, we can choose to give them money for the equipment and not for the shower.
Yeah.
And then you say that they were committed to give them money for the shower. I don't.
If you look at the budget, bizarrely the shower's the one that lasts for 100% of the others, they've just knocked a bit off.
But actually, with the shower as well, that would be for the junior teams as well, because you wouldn't have boys and girls playing at a senior level, I don't think. But at junior levels, you would have boys and girls playing together, so you might actually need it for that reason. Like, if it's just two girl teams playing against each other, they'll just use home and away, won't they?
If you awarded them the full cost of the equipment, excluding the shower, it's £1,000.
Alright.
Probably just award them £1,000. Well, if you've got that.
You sure? Oh, so you give them the full cost, yeah, I get you,
Yeah,
yeah.
because you just take the 575 off the total of 1515. Yeah, it's exactly what Jen said.
Yeah. Okay.
If they'd have taken the arts festival approach, they could have applied to finance for £500 for the shower and £1,000 for sport.
Can we pass it on to
That bit of it could be referred on to finance.
Yeah.
But it's important. If the club need it, and I can imagine if they have started to get female players and girl players, then that is pretty important.
It's cricket and girls. It's like football with girls as well. It's really expanding and moving on now. It's good. So we'll be getting more and more stuff like this. Because a lot of changing facilities at clubs will be outdated with if all
So
women players.
shall we say we'd be willing to consider the equipment and refer on to FNM for the shower.
Yeah, but for the equipment, should we just pay what they've requested us from the council? So that wouldn't be £1,000, it'd be a bit less. And then it'd just be 575 going to the other one, or should we say we'll give them £1,000 and pay for all the equipment? Even more,
But I
we'll
think
be giving more than what they're asking for.
I
if you
think
know
when
what I
you've
mean.
looked at the others, if we make the same decision supporting principle, the next one, you've still got about 15 grand's worth of applications and only £8,000 money. So if you gave them all half of what they, like, I think
Be about
what I'm saying is don't make the decision about the 1,000. Let's look at the next one and then let's see how much we
Yeah.
now got
Yeah.
left, if you like.
Yeah. That's a very good idea.
Because you either prioritise them or you just give everybody a percentage, don't you? But
Okay, so,
About 810 if we gave them the money that they want for the equipment.
okay. So we'll consider the last two and then go back to divvying it up for the ones that we've agreed to. Okay, so item number 8, to consider an application from Enabling Youth and Motocross CIC application enclosed for £4,959 towards youth club provision. The legal power for this would be the Local Government (brackets) and Miscellaneous Provisions Act, 76, section 19. So, what are people's thoughts?
I'll say what I think on this one. Again, I think it's a fair application. They do some great work, particularly the junior club has proved very, very popular down there. The junior club is viable but less popular. There's more younger people come in than when they say juniors, I think they still stop at 14. The problem is that this is the budget for 12 weeks worth of activity and they run 52 weeks of the year. So the question is, well, what are you going to do? And it's because they're literally hand to mouth. You know, they're getting money in, getting a grant, spending it, then worrying about the next phase. And it's not their fault, but they could have approached us of saying it's actually cost £20,000 a year with like £5 towards 20, but they've asked for 4,959 to fund 12 weeks of activity to 100% of the costs. So it's just they've all approached the exercise differently. But again, you know, it's some great work. Enabling Youth are a good organisation. They're based in Meltham, but some of them live locally. You know, it's at the Phoenix Centre. It's Home Valley kids that attend it. I've got no problem with any of that. I just worry that what happens after 12 weeks, really. But you know, you could say the same for Homley Youth because they're in a similar situation. Cafe 100 are in a similar situation. So I support it, but it
says a motocross on it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So what do they do? Is it like?
what Enabling Youth, as I understand it, they're a community interest company that basically run youth projects in different places. And I'm assuming motocross just must be another element of what they do. They don't do motocross in Homeford. The activity in Homeford is it's a youth club in the Phoenix Centre, like an old school youth
So
club.
it's just going to the youth club. It's not going to motocross like motorbike.
Yeah, the activity that they do down there is just like a walking youth centre.
Okay.
Well, as they say, it started running 2 popular youth clubs in. If you remember, this is the one where last year we funded Kirklees Youth Alliance, and then they flipped because Kirklees Youth Alliance, rather than employing the staff, basically commissioned Enabling Youth. Is that right, Jen?
That is absolutely
So
correct.
Enabling Youth basically took the contract on, and we allowed for them to take the contract. So it's just a continuation of the people who are there.
So what I find a bit funny about this is, it says paid staff, 10 covering Home Valley and Wakefield, 6 covering volunteers, 6 covering Home Valley and Wakefield. So that's not really giving us the information we need. We need like who's working in Homeford, what's the detail in this. It's a bit spread across, isn't it?
Well, it's sort of buried in the budget because they say 2 youth workers at £17.50 an hour plus for 2 evenings a week.
It's two
So they have
juniors.
They have given us a breakdown of that, and I know they do use volunteers because they're always asking for more volunteers. So our money is paying for the youth workers that are working in that club in that Home Valley. But they've got other workers that work on projects in Wakefield.
So So I mean, I'm not against this at all. It's just like what you said. It's on a weekly basis. Like they came to us last year, last year or earlier this year before the summer holidays, asking us about some money for a project. They're asking us again now. We do a bit more joined up thinking on this on long-term budgeting rather than like if we don't need this grant.
Is that just the nature of what these kind of organisations do? Unfortunately, they can't.
We never used to get these kind of grants from this group before at the parish council. I think before the funding would have come from Kirklees.
Kirklees used to run the youth club and pay all the youth workers there, didn't it? Up until fairly recently.
But now we're not doing, so that's why they come to us.
In fact, 2 of the council's youth workers were at the event down at the Tech a couple of weeks ago, last week, and they basically said they never come into the valley, didn't they?
Yeah.
So they have got what they call a detached team that work. So if all the kids were kicking off at Sands, they used to basically parachute some youth workers in and have a chat with the kids. But I think they're basically parachuting into other areas because there just isn't.
They don't perceive this to be an area of need.
Yeah.
I think there's enough provision. So, this is partly, I think, why enabling youth and other organisations are trying to set up more in the valley, because it's not going to come from anywhere else. That's why they're making an application to the council. The funding's not going to come from anywhere else. I did have a long conversation on the back of the financial checks that Doug's did alongside myself, and there are issues about future proofing and the model of provision they're building up, and certainly I think they would absolutely be overjoyed if at some future point, when the next council comes in, there's a sort of longer term plan for funding that they feel that they might be able to tap into. But we are where we are at the moment, so this is the application they put in, but it is exactly because Kirklees Youth Alliance, have sort of pulled out basically.
So do we all support the application in principle, and we'll decide in a minute how much?
I think we all support it, but we all think it kind of needs to be a bit better, a little bit more long-term, a better organisation for it. Even if they come to us maybe at the start of the next council, and say, we need 10,000 off you for this year, I think I'd prefer that. Would you notice something like that? So then, rather than coming in every...
I'd like to see the annual budget for all 3 of these. Well, all Cafe 100 on the youth and this one. There is also, they've not applied this time, but last time Project Communities had a grant, didn't they? And I think they're still operating our new mill, but they do a lot of work based in schools. So, but anyway, they've not put in this time. But the obvious, from my work of working with the volunteer youth providers, if you like, it is on the Youth Cafe 100 and these guys at the Phoenix.
I think when it comes to setting
There's
budget,
60 grand between them.
I think when it comes to setting the next budget, I think thinking about these issues from the parish council point of view is what might not be me, but I think we need to do that, don't we? We need to have a big enough pot of money to do some of these things well, really.
We need to know what they need from us, and also I think it might be good for them to have some, not like, I don't know if this is the correct wording, but something like a business plan. It's not really business, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A plan for like the next 2 or 3 years. And Honley Youth Club's quite good. They've been going for a while now. It's probably smaller scale than this one at the Phoenix, but we kind of need, it would be good for us to see what their plans are, or to come report to us and things like that. And it might be something that what you can do from your work, though. So I don't know.
Well, me and Charles, both of us said in that meeting, not that we can make a decision about what the parish would do, but that we would be suggesting that the parish looks at that £8,000 budget to put it on a more realistic setting and tries to create a long... Because if we have got 3 business plans and we knew that between them they needed 60 or 80 grand, then we might say, well, let's get nearer to 20, and then at least they know they've got a third of the funds, and then... But we can't do that tonight. We just need to make a decision with the money we've got, don't we? And perhaps ask if we can use reserves to give them a bit more.
It'd be good to know as well.
This year,
It'd be good to know like what other pots are going to as well. Because we're going to the Kirklees councillors and try to think about on the farm charity that they have. And there's other charities through the Barry and all the Valley and other things where they can work together to put something together for them, and something that's more long term and something that will work. Like rather than having to come in with the bucket every few months. I'm not going to do it for that because it's kind of like quite new and they're quite I think reactive is the word. They're reacting to the circumstances of what they have at the moment and building on it. It's still quite young and new, but I think that hopefully we can get things going a bit better.
Yeah. Well, they've actually said, they've all said on their applications, this one we're just looking at, they got nearly 6,000, or they applied for 6,000 from the Mayor's Safer Communities Fund. And then the other one below, they said they've applied to lottery and YAP, whatever YAP is, and MAP, whatever that is. But I think they all scratch around for funds every year because it's the nature of, trying to stack up the budget. Yeah, the next one had £10,000 from the lottery. So they are asking other places.
Okay, so we move on to item number 9, which I think we'll be thinking about in a similar kind of a way. It's consider a grant application from Cafe 100, application enclosed for 4292 towards running costs and staff wages for the provision of Cafe 100 Youth Club. And the legal power for this would be the Local Government and the Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1976, section 19. I think I support this application. What other people think?
So, they work with, it was interesting actually, they weren't at the meeting that week, but Susan, who's done a little bit of work with them, I've done a little bit of work with them. What's unusual about Cafe 100, they don't really attract mainstream kids. I'm trying to think of a better word.
I know what you mean.
The kids who are on the fringe, the kids
Yeah.
that have got, their behavioural issues or whatever the new word is to describe people who've got autism and other sort of various spectrum behaviours. Anyway.
Hard to reach.
No,
there's the word to
Send.
no, they're not necessarily sound, it's
neuroatypical.
What he said.
Yeah.
So I think it provides a safe space for children and young people who aren't part of the mainstream youth in the valley. So it's a lovely little space that they've got there, and the church provide it free. They've been going for ages. There's lots of really positive things about it.
I mean, in the 6 years I've been on the parish council at Cafe 100, they've been a regular requester for grants, and the reports that I've read from them have always been really impressive, and I think it's a great thing for young people in Holmfirth, and I'd like to support it.
Yeah. How much did they ask for? Is it?
Just over 4,292.
Everyone's asking for more money than they did before, but I suppose the running costs and stuff like that
Absolutely,
are going through the roof with electricity and all that heating bills.
Especially sort of over the next few months.
So
Okay, so are we gonna sort of divvy these up then? So item number, looking at the youth facilities budget, item number.
what is it they're going to spend money on for the Capital 100? Is it going to be spent on?
It's nearly all working costs actually, this one. They did break it down.
So this is from
They're asking for 3,200 towards staff wages and £1,000 towards the running costs.
so this is project start date.
Insurance and cleaning.
Sorry, keep on interrupting. So end of September till the end of March. So it's 6 months. So this is what the plan is for it. So 6 months, 4,292. Whereas the other one was 4,000 odd for 12 weeks, wasn't it? So for 3 months.
Yeah.
So, but this is a smaller group though, isn't it? It's small. There's less kids go there than there is at the Phoenix. So, but like you say, it is reaching out to different kids. And so 4,000 for this for 6 months and 4,000 the other for 3 months. Considering I think the other one's probably got about 3 times as many kids who go there a week. And it's probably pro rata about the same. I'm thinking per cost per kid.
Yeah, and it's sort of, because they've all approached it differently how they've filled it in, I think you sort of compare apples and pears really, that's
So thinking about divvying this £8,000 that we've got in the budget up. So the first on the budget line grants, youth facilities budget line grants, we referring the Scouts one to FNM, that's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So the next one is for Homley Youth. I'm not going to vote on this one.
So
Well,
£1,000 towards training workshops for young people. So £8,000. So we've got £1,000.
That's a misprint on the.
Is that on the bit at the top? Is it a misprint? I'll just come back to looking at the agenda bit at the top.
On the agenda, the Homely Youth isn't £1,000 towards training workshops, is it, Jan?
it says that, that's what it says on the agenda.
Yeah, but the thing we've actually discussed is a grant application for more than £5, isn't it?
I'm sure that is all what they put.
The Homely Youth application was a series of cooking workshops and other workshops that totaled way more than that.
And big apologies if I got this wrong. Let me have a look.
It was 4,775. Oh yeah, we're not really closer. So the budget's not
Sorry.
really, is it?
That's me, I've misread that entirely then.
That's okay. So 4,775 they're asking for there. So I'm just going back to the top again.
Right.
So what if we had them all?
That's what I'm just doing now, yeah.
Right,
Unless Jen's got it, Jen can do it quicker or easier than me.
So it's 4,775 for the Homley. The Arts Festival was £1,000. The Cricket Club was £810 for the equipment minus the shower. And then we've got
How do you,
Are
Tom,
you adding this up, Tommy?
but I question Tom's maths on this, because I agreed with Jen Jen had got to £1,000 for equipment, hadn't you, Jen? Which was,
I was looking at the column on the right. Because they haven't asked for the full amount for each of the
oh,
equipment.
so you've taken 575 off 1385,
Yeah,
right,
Which-
which is another legitimate way to do it, I suppose.
which would be 815 or whatever, something like that, is it? Well, I don't know, I'm close,
Yeah.
it's something like that, isn't it?
So we're still saying refer to the finance for the shower, 100% of the shower costs?
Yes.
And then we just take that off the 1385 request, potentially.
Yeah.
Have you done that, Tom, haven't you?
I was working it out in my head, I was like, rather than taking the 375 if I added them all.
What did you say it was?
810?
It is 810.
Yes.
So the next one is for the Arts Festival of 1,000.
Yeah, it's Arts Festival 4,000.
All right, so we've got to that. And have you got the Cricket Club one?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a club one, and then there's 4,959 for the youth club, Perth Youth Club, and then 4,292 for Cafe 100. So,
Yeah. But it's over 15 grand, isn't it? Without me even doing the sums, but I'll do the sums properly now.
17,411.
What did you get?
17,411.
I've got 15.
Why have I got that?
Well, I'm not saying you're right.
Oh, right, maybe, right, I need to take that 1,000.
Check your.
16,411.
What figures are you working on? Have you got Homely Youth 4475?
Yeah, 4775.
4775, yeah. And then you've got 1,000 for the Arts Festival,
Yeah,
810 for the cricket.
no, I've not
I was
reduced that yet.
working on Tom's 8. Did you work on the 1,000?
I was working on the 1,385 they'd have. Yeah,
Oh,
that's
right.
where I've gone
I
wrong.
think so. What we've done, if we take the shower off the 1,300,
Yeah,
you get 810.
yeah,
And then the other figures, which are for enabling youth and Cafe 100.
It might be something for future provision where we think about maybe having sports facilities. We'll have that as a separate thing as well for grant applications.
So why don't we have 8,000 divided by, what, 15,000 and something?
So we'll
Whatever that fraction is, we times it by the original request and then give them that.
Well, if we're using 8,000 and it's about 16,000 in total, we could give each of them half of what they're asking for. But then, is that going to really help them?
It's literally 50, it's as close as down to 50% of what they're asking.
Alright, okay. So,
But I suppose the question is, can they, the cricket club can very easily just buy a bit less, can't they? Or they can, enabling youth could run for 6 weeks, not 12 weeks. Cafe 100.
well, we just stuck, aren't we, in terms of being able to do anything else, really. Not unless,
We can either ask to reportion out the, we have the words mixed up here, ask to move some budget from playgrounds into this instead.
Well, that's what my prefer. I'd like if we could to fund all these, because we know that it's not 100% of the costs for any of them. So I'd like to use the reserves if it's there.
so if we make a proposal for full council that if we agree to fund half and say we're going to ask full council to release the remaining amount, pending on their agreements, we'll supplement the 50% with.
I don't think we should mention that. I think we should just say we want to give them the full amount, and but to do this we need to use the money from the reserves, from the playground budget, and move it across. If we yeah, there's reasons I don't want to do that.
Yeah, okay.
But I think as well, like a lot of these groups will need, like Cafe 100, that they'll need as much money as they can get at the moment with the prices and everything going up.
So
it's important we do keep this going.
So if we respond to the people who've applied for grants and say where we don't have funds to cover all the grants that have applied to service provision, so we're going to ask full council if we can release some of our reserves to cover.
The time has been noted for a few weeks. We're
Yeah.
heading in a discussion at full council,
Yeah, okay.
and but yeah, we'll make that referral to full council and
Yeah.
say that. And
Right, so,
we'll have a decision for them on so date.
so the Home Valley District Scouts is going to go to F&M.
Yeah.
The cricket club, are you talking about awarding them half of the 810?
Yeah.
We're delaying it, aren't we? That's what our
Yeah,
plan
we're
is.
going to delay each of these, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're giving the full 810, but finance and management paying for the shower.
Yeah, fine.
But in theory, if we could take another 8,000 of reserves, that'd give us 16,000, which is close to the 15,800 we've got on the table.
Yeah.
If they say no, we'd be giving them 50%, because the full council may say no, mightn't they?
Yeah.
In which case, I think we could make a decision tonight to say we're giving up
Yeah.
405.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what,
Yeah,
so,
given the
that's
full
fine.
amount, yeah.
I'm going to know that.
My other question is, do we give out grants again from service provision in this council year?
To give that out in February,
February, yeah.
but there won't be, yeah.
Because we're going to have the Unfair Youth Club come to us again now.
Yeah.
Well, we shouldn't have Hollow Youth Club and the other groups coming to us.
So maybe what we need to
As of 10,000.
ask, maybe more, Tom, maybe ask for 60.
This has gone crazy because youth provision before. We never did. We used to give out no, we did promote it. We did ask groups to come forward for us, but I think before they all want more money. Or
I think there's a need though, isn't there, Tom, really,
there wasn't a new club in Holland before, so that's something new. And I'm not saying it's bad. It's just like I'm just surprised how much this has just grown. But I suppose it's just one of those things, isn't it?
I mean, I think for this year it's quite interesting that you've got that playground budget, which we know, you know, is not going to be drawn upon. So that's something, an argument that can be made at full council.
And playground payments playgrounds are youth provision.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
So, in terms of what we're telling the applicants then, are we we're just asking them to, just saying we're going to refer the applications to full council, and we'll, obviously depending on if they agree, I guess this is for us though, if we agree, if full council agree, then we'll fund the whole request. If they don't, then we fund it by 50%.
So tomorrow I'm telling them, including Hancock Arts Festival getting 500 rather than 1,000,
Yeah.
and Homebridge Cricket Club, the shower application going on to finance and management, so £810, half of that being 405, and then half of enabling use 4959, and half of Cafe 100's 4292, and half of Honley use 4775.
Well, that would be.
I want to add it up.
Yeah, the best of just double checking it all.
Yeah.
My son's wrong.
Sorry.
Well, let's see what Jen gets.
Yeah. I tell you what, you'll be quicker than me, Douglas, but I'm definitely going to do it.
You need to be able to. You need to be satisfied that you're correct 100%.
£7,918.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I
Yeah. Yeah, and that'll give us loads of money, I'll say. But then we'll get to tenner next time.
And then for full council, do you want me to put as to consider releasing the whole of the playground into, or a proportion of the
Well,
playground?
how much is the playground now?
Is it
50,000?
50,000?
That's it's 50,000.
Yeah.
But that means we'd have to make another cycle of decisions, wouldn't we? I think I'd rather we just ask for the sort of 8,000-ish
Yeah.
for this year,
Yeah.
but ask that some of that money's released as a pot for next year. So next year maybe we could have £30,000 pot.
You'll have
So
nothing
28,000
for the
something like that.
February grant.
Yeah, we need to have
applications,
something for February, don't we?
I think we
We
can.
haven't got a February grant application, that's fine, that's the process, isn't it?
I think we'll wait till February and see what there is then.
No, we do have.
Yeah.
It's a 2 times a year cycle, isn't it?
Oh, even for the youth stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, I assumed we just made that
I
decision
mean,
once a year.
until the pot runs out, so I mean,
Ah, right, okay.
if you, yeah.
I'd rather leave it in the rest in the playgrounds for now until, and then we can we might need that.
Well, I
for
suppose we
something
can
else.
always do this again come February.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like in February, if no one's come forward, we haven't had anything else. Like that's kind of I see it as a bit of our kind of rainy day money. So if it's rather than designate something else now,
Yeah.
if there's still some quite a budget in there, which there probably will become February, we can just release it from there again.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way of doing it.
Yeah.
Rather than saying it's
I
all.
assume, because last year we we went through this in one single meeting, didn't we, as well?
Mm.
So I just assumed it was an annual decision, really.
No,
Because we were two grants.
there were two separate
Right.
times it was considered. So, are you asking full council to consider basically 8,000?
Yeah.
So that would leave us 160 quid in the pot, wouldn't it, for
Yeah.
February?
But like
It's
we
in
said,
the-
we can just ask again, can't we?
Mm.
If we end up with a lot of grants for a lot of
Yeah.
Mm.
amounts.
You can imagine
Yeah,
why
but if
cafe
if somebody rings up the council and speaks to Jenna Rich, you'd be saying, well, there's only 160 quid left in the
Yeah.
pot.
Yeah.
Because that's the honest answer, because I know there's the technical answer, but we know there's a big secret capital money, statutory money
You could
in
do
the
well.
reserves.
You wouldn't really say to them, would you, what there is? You just say to them, put your grant application in and the committees will review it on their own merits. We shouldn't dissuade people from
No.
putting grant applications,
No.
even if the budget has run out. We should say to them to put it in there and we will always review anything on its merits and depending on our finances.
Because I think we even, even if we don't just put that tiny amount of money, if there's a way that we can find out to support
Yeah.
people's applications, then I think we will, won't we?
So I was looking at Rachel's title on that, she got JP afterwards.
yeah.
She did justice on the piece.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, you could ask them to consider releasing, 24,000 out of the playground budget, which is only half of it, but then means you've got 16,000 ready for February.
Is that likely to get through, do you think? Do we think that is?
Well, sorry, finish on.
I just wondered whether or not it would get support at the full council meeting, really. Are we more likely to get support for covering applications in February where we've got nothing in the kitty to fund those, or would we get support to ask for £24,000 to be released from the playgrounds budget? I don't know. Is it not really? Does that not really matter? Do you think? Or?
I think we should leave it in there for now, the rest of it. Because I think we need to decide as a council how much we should be spending on youth provision. Evidently we've budgeted way under for what demands there is in the valley for it. But we need to kind of think about it, have a conversation with ourselves and think, do we need to budget more for this in the future? Do we need to? Should we be spending this money on this, or can these groups get the funding from elsewhere? What is the thing to do? I don't really know.
Okay.
Can I ask Jen another question?
Yeah. Go for it.
Is there a £5 limit per organisation? So, say if we did that, 16,000 in the pot come February, could Cafe 100 have another 5, or is 5 the limit per organisation or per application?
I think the reason that there's that 5,000 limit is anything above that has to go to full council.
Okay.
So within your remit as a committee, you can award grants up to 5,000 within the budget that you've got. For any request,
per
even
application or per group, because they could have 2 5s. We could gain it by giving them 5 twice, couldn't we? I'm assuming the spirit of it is we don't want this committee. Every time it met, it could give the same organisation £5 grand. But if we've ended up giving them 20,000 over the year, that should have been a full council decision, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I get you.
Okay.
But I suppose my question, because if it's a £5 grand limit, most of the major youth organisations have already applied tonight, apart from Project Communities.
Yeah.
But there may be another one that starts up next week.
It depends on the project though, like if they word it differently and say this is a different project that we're asking for money for, the same group could apply again. It depends on how it's worded, doesn't it, I suppose?
Yeah, that's why I think the whole thing needs a bit more clarity for them as well as us.
Okay, so are we happy that we've dealt with the grants bit? Yeah.
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 Applications?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go on to the asset management section of the agenda, a little bit behind schedule, so sorry about that. So the first item on this part of the agenda, item 222.3.32, is the asset transfer on the library. Work has continued on the part of HVPC solicitors on the drafting and amending of the lease agreement between HVPC and FOHL. See report on the title, that's in item number N1, Appendix 1, N2, Appendix 2, N3, and Appendix 3, N4 from Ramsden Solicitors. Clerk to report further.
So there is significant movement to report, there's no doubt about it. The issue regarding having a fire alarm installed before Friends of Homley Library signed the lease, that's been resolved by Friends of Homley Library. I attended a Friends of Homley Library trustee meeting in August. The agreements that have been presented in the papers are largely in line with those that were well scrutinised in June. And I have discussed the timeline in the process with Holly Dale in terms of, well, what happens from here in terms of the asset transfer? When does it conclude? How do we get it across the line to conclude? And my understanding is that if the proposals put forward tonight are agreed, and then the asset transfer as a whole can go to full council on the 10th of October. And it is actually something that Hollydale as our solicitor, the Kirklees legal team and the Friends of Homley Library legal representation, they will decide the date for sign off, if you like. So basically, if we can agree the different motions tonight and then take the asset transfer as a whole to full council on the 10th of October, we're over the line with it. It will just be about the solicitors agreeing what that date is.
Okay. So I don't know, because I've got this personal interest that I've declared in the library. It feels like I ought to abstain from voting, really. So the first item is a to note item. So are we all happy to note the report of title, etc.?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've taken professional advice to make sure these things are all in order.
Absolutely, yeah.
I wouldn't.
I've
I'm qualified to read the fine print.
I've tried reading through these leases, and they're not
I know, I'm
they're not the most riveting kind of a thing, and it's easy to miss things if you're not a professional person in relation to these matters. So the first item is we just need to give our approval to firstly to consider the chancel repair insurance policy and approval of payment of a premium of £174.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to move that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was saying.
Agreed.
Second item is to consider the review and approval of the lease agreement.
Yeah, move it.
Yeah, seconded.
I abstain. I abstain from number 2 as well. Item 4, to consider the review and approval of the hosting agreement. I abstain from this one.
Yeah, move it.
Seconded.
Item 5, to consider review and approval of the hire agreement, and I'm abstaining from this vote.
I'd like to propose that, please, Chair.
I'll second that as well. That was all okay.
That's. And finally, to consider any other actions required with regard to the proposed asset transfer of Honley Library.
If I can just interject there,
Yeah.
Chair, I don't think there are any other actions that are required, but obviously, just in case there had been any discussion come up, that's why I've put that one on.
Okay.
Do we need to, assuming it could move quite quickly, and I know we're dealing with Kirklees Council in the state, so that's always a big caveat, but is there any pomp and ceremony or announcement, or do you need the chair of service provision to go and get the keys, or is that, because they will, I'm assuming there's something other than some legal people just signing documents?
Yeah, absolutely. There needs to be something of a celebration about it. I sort of put that for now in the hands of Jenny Lockwood
Yeah.
as the chair of
Co-chair.
I think she wants.
But yes,
I think
there will be.
Friends of Honley Library want to make a big sort of dance of it, and
Yeah.
it needs to happen, doesn't it? You know, and
Ribbon and big scissors and reopening and all this.
yeah, and some famous person
Famous person.
coming along to.
Somebody wearing a chairman or something like that at the council. But like, for us when we did the toilets transfer, it was a case of just going to the solicitors and launch hour. I'm going up there, signing some papers, signing this and that.
Yeah.
Kath did the same as well. It was the solicitors next in that West Bank. It was a little staircase up this door there, a bit random. Somewhere you walk past it 1,000 times, you don't know it's there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like Friends of Honley have done a phenomenal job without question, but equally some of our Honley councillors who made the present today equally have put a lot to it, haven't you? And I think
It's
you
gone for a long
should, you should take
time.
credit, not other counties. It should be the people. It should be whoever from the parish actually done the legwork on it and been in the thick of it. And but you know,
If I can get a selfie with a famous person, does then I'm happy with that, really.
Who's the famous person going to be?
Simon Armitage, it's hoped.
Yeah.
Alright.
Yeah. I'm not. Well, anyway, I won't say anything else.
He's the poet laureate, isn't he?
He is.
He was on the TV yesterday.
Yeah, he is a Honleyer as well, isn't
Is he? I know he's from around here.
the show's not a lot. Well, he's.
he? He used to live in Marston, but I know
Yeah.
that.
Oh, is he on there now? Yeah, it's definitely.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
Jinx it.
I don't want to say whereabouts he lives, but
I don't think exactly. Because my missus has said she's met him once before. I think he went to the school or something like that. So it's not
if you read his book about doing the Pennine Way from north to south, it tells you more or less where he lives in that. Really, if you're familiar with it.
I know his family well, Martin, because they write the Avalanche Dodgers. They do a.
Oh yeah, that's his dad, isn't it?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
Alright.
Anyway, well, let's all hope it goes through.
Yeah.
Okay, great stuff. Thanks, Jen.
And massive effort on, and then also Jan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's not been an easy journey, has it? It's not been a straightforward journey.
It'll be worth it, won't it?
Yeah, it will be.
Jen's only joined us at the end of the journey. It's been going on for donkey's years.
Yeah,
The amount of hours I've sat through meetings, Honley Library.
yeah. And Donna Bellamy and Trevor at the beginning.
Oh, my days, yeah, that's like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I'll go see it up and I'll look forward to
They
it.
really make some lovely cake though when you go to Friends and Honley Library meetings.
You sold it to me now. I'll be going.
Okay, great stuff. Okay, so the next item is Home Firth Civic Hall Community Trust. The following documents have been received from Home Firth Civic SPC update. Clerk to report.
So, in the June service provision meeting, I was reporting on the challenges that the Civic faced in recruiting staff. I'm happy to report that Pat has been started as caretaker, and they've also just taken on.
It's not Pat Colling, is it?
No, Patrick.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
They've also just started someone today on an admin support role, so
Okay.
that's great to hear. Yeah, as always, Dawn's done a really thorough report for your consideration. There has been an issue arise about the use of the exhibition room, which we've been working together with Liz and Dawn to resolve. Basically, Kirklees want to book the exhibition room for 2 days each week, from now really until the end of the autumn and until the end of December, for their asset management team to work in this side of Kirklees. But the issue is Tuesdays. Actually, we do use the whole of the exhibition room on Tuesdays when we're putting agendas and paperwork together. But we think we've more or less resolved that. And I did just want to say as well, the excellent support from Liz and Dawn regarding the Book of Condolence. They have
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
done a great job of making sure that's been available for people to write in, and Dawn helped me hunt out the black material that's down there, is a table covering, and they provided the tea lights that provided a nice atmosphere. So they really have given quite, a lot of support over this national period of mourning.
Excellent. Good. That's a good report.
I'm just kind of wondering, like lots of organisations really, with the kind of massive increase in energy costs, have they said anything about how they feel it might impact on them?
They haven't, but I think one of their meetings it was postponed due to the national period of mourning as well. But no, it's not been mentioned to me.
It mentions on the
We met
report
last
here.
week. We met last week.
Oh.
Right, so they did meet.
I don't want to be quoted, and I know I'm on film. I think various organisations are locked into certain deals, aren't they? And I think the other thing is, people are also, and Judith knows a lot more about this because of other projects she's involved with, depending what this trust decides, she's almost certainly going to offer some sort of deal for businesses which should
All right.
help
Okay.
them.
Right.
And I think the general view was there's still a lot of unknowns. I mean, there's issues anyway, there's challenges anyway with heating this building, which is why they're doing the efficiency work, and there's issues with the boiler. So there's other big issues they've got despite the utility bill costs. But I think the advice from Judith to the management committee, there's only me and Pat and Judith there at the last meeting, so it's a good job that we've got trustee, parish representatives as trustees. Yeah, I think they were saying that they're still waiting development through, but they're not immediately concerned.
It does say here that anticipated new contracts in September for electricity and June next year for gas.
Yeah.
Next year for gas.
All right.
So it might be like, it sounds like they've done a good job of getting the deals when they did do it. But they still need to be careful around it, I suppose. The one thing that I've actually thought of is talking about some town hall buildings and libraries and places like that. I don't have enough space for them to the public to go to during the day. If this building's going to be heated and warm during the day, and there's going to be spare rooms, would it be possible that they might have spaces where they open them up for people to go in and just sit down and just read a book or do whatever? I don't know.
Well, there is conversations going on about that, and I think libraries and possibly the tech might be places, and assuming this will be involved in the communication about it.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're involved, obviously, you can mention something.
Yeah, there's still waiting on further advice really from the council about what they want to do.
We're still waiting for the government as well to decide what they're going to do as well on that, so we don't know how bad it's going to be for everybody.
We did discuss this issue that James raised about the inflation paperwork, and my and Pat's view was, well, if you're best to sort it out between yourselves because you both live here and you need to make it work.
Yeah.
And the council want to come in and use it as a space, but it didn't seem critical of that to be in on a Tuesday. They could perhaps change it, and that was the conversations they were having.
Yeah, it looks like that's exactly what's happened.
What I'm confused about, when I was having other conversations with other officers, I thought they were going to move into the Tourist Information Office. But maybe they need different space to do different work. I've no idea because I only know half the story. The other thing, Jen, I don't know if you could shed any light on this. On this report, they always do what I think is fairly confusing. They talk about there's a £60,000 budget line for the toilets and office space that's got Home Valley Parish Council next to it, and there's 10,000 for the fire escape. Has any money gone from the parish to them for that work? Because it appears on here that they haven't drawn that money down, even though the work's well underway. So do you know I know we've allocated the money, but their report implies they haven't drawn it down, but I thought they had. I'm surprised they haven't drawn it down, because they've obviously done quite a lot of the works downstairs in terms of the store, the office and the toilets. See the bit I mean? That box diagram. It's showing the expenditures not happened and the balance is still 60, well,
Yeah.
that's not accurate because I know that the work's been done, so expenditure's like, I just didn't know how the finances were working between us and them. But really that's an internal process for them to draw that down and invoice you or however we allocate it, isn't it?
Okay.
What I'll do is I'll inquire about that and I'll put a note here as an action for myself to email you out the answer I get.
Well, if they've done the work and they've got bills coming in, then they really should be, if we've got their money, they should take that, shouldn't they, to pay the bills? And the other question then, I thought I was going to say a hole in the wall for the fire escape, is it in a different wall? Where's the fire escape going?
There's something that they started work there, it's in the corner.
Oh, that's screwed.
Yeah,
Oh, I thought we were going to come into a hole.
no,
So that started by putting a screw through the wall.
that's exactly what they came and did.
Right, okay.
That's how they're going to do it. I always thought they would just have to do it, they would just be there beside the, on the window. I didn't realise that bit there stuck out further than that bit.
So they're going to cut a hole there for a doorway?
I'm assuming so.
Okay. Well, thank you to the Civic Trust for their report.
Also that picture. So we don't do it too high.
So I'll move on to the next item, which is report from the maintenance contractor regarding toilet shelters, war memorials, phone boxes and benches. To receive the note of the report from the maintenance contractor, some of the suggestions contained in the report are included in the motions for considerations later in the agenda. Clerk to report.
Yeah, I've just got to add that with Cranford Food Festival, who wanted to access water from the public toilets, so we installed a temporary water meter so that their water usage could be measured. They actually only used just short of 1 cubic metre. So
Really?
it was really a small amount.
What?
That they
Was it a
used.
faulty meter? Because
They used, before, right, they've used absolute tons of water because we've had to, we don't give them grants for the food festival because we let them use the water from the toilets. And these are people coming back and forth and taking loads of water off us before, but depends what they've got down there, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm just reporting what John's reported to me.
it's
I
tiny, man,
can,
isn't it? 1 cubic meter?
I can raise a question with him whether or not
Don't do. It's fine. It's a bit strange, I thought there'd be more,
they must have had access to other water, mustn't they?
Well, I suppose some people might have brought their own supply of water.
but nobody's they used to use it for like cooking rice or like pasta or whatever they're cooking down by the car park, and I'm trying to think what those are. They might not have just been the type of food for them, they might have just been making chips and doing other things instead, so I'm not complaining.
Okay.
One thing I did notice actually when I was down there for the food festival, I went down there on Sunday, it was really busy, and stood outside the toilets waiting for my business, and loads of people going in there, people just not putting money in, loads of people just don't do it anymore. I mean, there's two reasons. One of the reasons is people don't carry around cash anymore, everyone just goes
Yeah.
so people do that, and I'd be interested to see what the donations are like compared to previous years, because John hasn't reported on that recently. I'm not, but the signage as well is maybe looking a bit old, and we can maybe do put some more clear signs up there saying, please donate 20p's each time. Because there is some stuff on there, but people just walk straight past it and ignore it. And another thing I did notice is, well, some people trying to go in, walking in, and still go to the left where the gents used to be up on the door there. We could probably do a big sign saying ladies and gents on the right there. So it's people, some people there were just seeing the women queuing to go into the ladies' toilets. So they just thought, oh, that side is just ladies. They didn't realise the gents were also in there, but on the left, when you go in there. So we could maybe do something to make the signage a bit better.
Right.
And Laura also mentioned as well about the pressure when you try to flush in the ladies isn't very good. You have to push right down, and it's quite difficult apparently. So that's my observations of the toilets. But the male toilets were very clean and very done. Well, John's does an excellent job of keeping them clean throughout the festival. But Laura did comment on that actually, how clean they are considering how many people are using them and how busy they are. But
Sterling job.
yeah.
So that report is to note. The next item is specifically related to the public toilets. As reflected in the report from the contractor, vandalism and misuse continue to be an issue for Holmfirth public toilets. Replacing of cisterns needs to be investigated. Costed, maybe that's coming down. Maybe that's one of the reasons for the pressure being so rubbish. Budget line, public toilets, day-to-day show that £7,545.99 remains of 17,000 illustrating that 6 months into the financial year, 55.61% of the budget has been spent. Toilet voluntary contributions include £1,361 from June 2021 to February 2022 and 364 from Feb 22 to March 22, and then from March to September this year we've got 1,416. There have been issues reported with the post office and banks not accepting counted coinage. The clerk is in discussion over how to facilitate having a monthly total reported in future. Clerk to report.
And that's really, answering the issue that you just brought up, Tom, about being able to see how the voluntary contributions have changed over 1 year to the next. And there has been an issue, and I'm not able to present you with a monthly total, but I have asked John if that's how they can record the voluntary contributions in future, so that we could make those kind of comparisons. I think the issues arose first of all with COVID, with them trying to bank the money, and there are still issues now, partly because they've had such an accumulation of the money to bank, and whilst banks are obliged to accept counted coinage, if they are at busy times, they also have the right to tell you to come back at another time. So there have been these issues with just banking the money, but that's the amount of contributions that we have had.
Can I ask a couple of questions? So when the budget line says it's 7,500 and whatever, does that include the income?
No.
So although we've spent 55% of the budget, we're actually sat on nearly £1,700 in cash as well. Does that go into the same? How do we account? Do we account for that by putting that back into that budget line as an income in that budget line? Is that how we?
As I understand it from my conversation with Rich, it's in a separate budget line at the moment, and obviously there is still this 1,416 to be banked.
Yeah. But that would more.
It should go into.
If we spend it
should go into
then that should cover the overspend, shouldn't it?
It should.
Roughly.
Yes.
I can see there's another issue. Well, that's a question really about, because it seems to me it'd be sensible on the budget to show that the toilets cost X amount, partly funded out of our core parish allocation, but also funded out of contributions. The other thing, and it's only a thought, there is new owners that have just moved into the post office, and it might be worth a conversation with them just to say, can we find a workaround really? Because they could count it at their leisure, couldn't they? It doesn't matter to us when they do it, but we just need an agreement with them that they had agreed to take it. And even if they said they wanted a percentage fee to deal with it, because it's a real problem. I mean, I had this with charity collections, and what I used to do is go and give it to pubs and sell it to pubs, because pubs have to pay for, in the old days, pubs had to go and pay for, when you go to a bank and buy, say, 500 quid's worth of change, it costs you like 550 quid. So they're quite happy to buy 500 quid's worth of change for 500 quid because they make money on it.
Yeah.
So something that's dodgy this though, because you want to move the charity and take it to the pubs.
Yeah. But we had the same problem, that the banks just wouldn't touch it, or they'd only let you pay in 3 banks at a time. But the problem, as you've said now, Tom, is even if you went to a pub in Holmfirth and said, I've got 40 quid's worth of 5p's, they don't want it.
they're not interested in it.
Nobody wants the cash anyway.
It's a
And it's
bit-
little bits, tiny bits of pennies and five, I'm assuming that is the very
Yeah.
stuff that nobody wants.
Yeah.
If you've got a load of pound coins, they might say, yeah, we'll take those, but, so I think all I'm saying is it might be worth a side conversation on your own as the post office, saying,
I
is there
put
a
that
way-
down as an action for myself, Doug's.
Yeah, the same, I'm assuming, there are lots of
Yeah.
people like that, aren't there,
Okay,
but it's disappointing to see the amount of vandalism on the, further up on the report. I was, continue to be appalled really at what's having to be done in there. Why are people unscrewing air fresheners off the wall? Who's got time to do stuff like that?
Weird things going on, crazy people, aren't there? There's always crazy stuff going on, but it's. I'm a bit concerned about the takings going down, but that's going to be. You have to do something where we might have to put more money into it to kind of fund them in the future. Because I'm pretty sure before we were getting something like 300 a month or 400 some months, and now actually at the moment it's like 200 on average. So 6 months from March to September, it's just over 200 in total, and they're our busiest months. So I might have nobody at the food festival yesterday. When I was there on Sunday, there was nobody putting any money into it. And I think
that's because a lot of people.
they don't carry cash around anymore, and just take it for granted. But it'll be interesting to see what John's take is like for like there might have been people putting in when I wasn't there, or some other people might be doing stuff, I don't know. But there was a lot of people using it, and a lot of people just weren't putting any money in. But you can't force them to do, can you? Unless you literally have somebody there, like with a bucket or something, or if you put like a turnstile on and like a card payment or something like that. But then that's really expensive. We don't really want to do that. We want to kind of make it so that we just hope people do put the money in.
It's coming up to 9 o'clock now, so are you all happy to carry on?
Yeah, just give me 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we have any actions from that? Is it just the finding out how we? You've talked about discussing with John about having like some sort of monthly total for,
Yeah,
and then
and
You're
I'm
looking
going
at-
to talk to the post office
Okay.
as well.
that's great, thank you. The next item, stone shelters and seats update. Budget line 4740, maintenance cost of seats and shelters shows that a total of £7,828.06. Of the £30,000 budget remains, so that is 39.78 of the budget has been spent. So that's, I guess we're all right, aren't we?
We're good. That's like 6 months in, and
Yeah,
we're
less than
paying-
50% now.
Doing really well.
Yeah, Gareth, have you got to the report, P, from the contractor, Hayridge Shelter continues to be a shelter most often in need of attention. Is that because it's kind of quite an exposed sort of?
Yeah, it's a funny one as well. It's a double one, isn't it? It sort of faces out both ways, I think. So, but yes.
Approved works of stone shelters in Oldfield, the window and its frame to be knocked out to deter misuse of the shelter still needs to go ahead. Once more, the clerk would like to thank councillors from Home Valley residents for their continued efforts to report issues with benches found to be in a state of disrepair, and the maintenance contractor on the swift action taken on several occasions to repair benches which have been damaged. The clerk is processing a request for a memorial plaque to be installed on HON 15C with regards to a Mr. Keith Wigley in line with the memorial benches policy.
So I'm just letting the committee know that there's nothing else you need to be concerned about with it.
Okay. The two benches adjacent 36 Victoria Street, Home Firth, HD item DE, formerly Yorkshire Building Society, have been removed and are now in storage. Home Pride have suggested several sites for possible resiting. The clerk has looked at the sites and suggested with maintenance contractor and will present possible ways forward at the meeting for consideration. Clerk to further report.
So I've bought the area with John, and there have been suggestions made from Home Pride as to where these sites could be. And basically, where we're suggesting is possibly a bench outside of Oxfam. Now, I've spoken to one of the people who works in Oxfam, but I would want to write formally next to see if that's something they would consider. Because if we put the seat outside there, it would then also serve people who are waiting for the bus.
Is there
I'm
is there
looking
any
at it.
lights on? Is there the bookshop?
And having looked at it with John, he considers there's enough space there that it wouldn't interfere with free flowing on the pavement. But we would have to get permissions from Kirklees to go ahead with that.
So we don't want it to blocks off the display to the shop. But imagine it, you're on the other side of the pavement. But then, I'm trying to think how wide it is. It is pretty wide there, isn't it? So
That's next to Barney Bowes, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's one possible site. And the other one I've looked at with John is at the end of School Street, just where you get to the platform where there's a bridge that goes across the river at the back of the Co-op car park. And there's definitely a space there that would be ideal for a bench. Probably need the gravel bin to be resited over the other side of the area. Again, it's something I would need to liaise with Kirklees about in terms of the space.
Okay.
But there is space there for a bench.
Which side of the river? Are you on the Co-op side of the river? Or the other
Co-op
side?
side of the river.
On the walkway bit?
So you go up the steps at School Street, and then the bridge is sort of facing you.
So the school street's that road that goes around the back of the co-op?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And there's the side of the Methodist Church. Yeah, so it's right at the far end
Oh,
of the
that
co-op,
one's right down there.
behind the glass recycling.
Oh, right, okay.
Okay, so
Well, there's basically a dead end with...
yeah, and there's that notice board there.
Yeah.
And there's a gravel bin.
Yeah.
And that's about it really.
okay, I'm fine. Pretty good with these kind of things,
Yeah.
aren't I? So I'm quite happy to go with what their suggestions are.
And both
Yeah.
of those won't, no matter what else happens with the road scheme, what we don't want to do is put it somewhere where it might get pulled up really.
Exactly.
And both of those, I'd imagine, are fairly
Yeah.
unlikely to be impacted by any road scheme.
Yeah. So they've been proposed by Home Pride. I've walked the area and checked it out with John as to the viability. I think it probably is viable, but we would still need permissions from Kirklees and from the Oxfam bookshop as well. So that would be the next actions I would take if.
Okay.
I'm happy to go with that.
Yeah.
Jen.
And there was somebody who commented about it on the community group about why these benches have been taken away by the Old Building Society. So I did say to them what happened and what they were doing and that. But yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, from the caravan roundabout, didn't they? Was it?
Well, some people did and some people kind of understood it, and it was just like generic on the community page post, wasn't it?
Yeah. Okay. The next item is adopted phone boxes update. A definitive decision has yet to be taken about the custodianship of the adopted red phone box next to the post office in Holmfirth. Possible uses have been discussed at the service provision meeting 13th of June 2022. Climate Emergency Standing Committee meeting on the 27th of June and full council on the 11th of July. Ideas for usage have centred around making a box available for different groups, especially connected to the festivals hosted in Holmfirth, for a few weeks, months at a time. A stop and think area within the box to be periodically changed, publicising current information and concerns. Home Pride suggested that the kiosk mirrors the use of the Wooldale bench box, with project being left and smaller shelving installed. The shelving installation has been offered free of charge. However, no individual organisation has stepped forward to act as custodian for the kiosk. In anticipation of a decision and to stop the kiosk falling into further disrepair, this kiosk has been repainted and signage ordered as per the maintenance contractor's reports. The maintenance contractor has placed a lock on the kiosk as requested and is willing to consider the use of his team for regular locking, unlocking of the kiosk to tie in with the locking, unlocking of the public toilets. This will be an additional charge for this of £1 for each locking, unlocking, as being suggested, i.e. a possible total of £730 per annum. Clark to report further.
Right, so I'm under considerable pressure from Home Pride, who Wynne seems to email me at least once a week regarding this, because they're very keen that the success of the veg box at Wooldale is mirrored in this box outside the post office. But the truth is, this has now been round several meetings and we still need to make a decision as to how it's going to be used. But we've still also got this great big gap over how it's going to be managed and overseen in terms of it being run. So all these ideas have been the ones put forward. I'm sure you'll remember some of the discussions we had on the 13th, but we do need to, or I would ask you to come to some decisions regarding it. The signage in it, the Homeburg community box has yet to be installed because the first signage that was delivered, the font size was too small, so John's been back in touch with them. So that still needs a little bit of finishing off once the proper signs have arrived. But that's where we're up to. So there would be quite a lot of work to be done if it was going to follow the sort of festival programme within Homeburg. You'd need a schedule of events, you'd need liaison, all that needs sort of upkeep in terms of ensuring that it's got the correct kit inside the phone box for each festival. So yeah, it's a problematic one because we haven't got a custodian who's come forward.
Well, something I haven't done, I spoke to somebody, a friend, well, not a senior officer in the council who happens to be an old friend of mine, and I don't know why we were talking about it, but one of her ex-colleagues, I want to say in Ilkley, but I don't think it is Ilkley, runs a similar multifunction kiosk site in the town, and she said what they've done there is amazing, and speak to him and find out how they've made it happen. And I haven't done that yet, and I was just looking to try and find the email with his contact details on, so I haven't followed that up. But the pressure from Home Pride to turn it into a veg box, apart from apples, which will be out of season in a few weeks, there is no veg anyway. There's not going to be until broad bean season early next year. So there is no pressure to do that, but I still instinctively think it just won't work. In the Wooldale ones, even it's a lovely idea, but I mean, I went in there this week and I took some beans out of it. And that's right next to an allotment in a village where things don't get trashed. And even there it's been trashed and used as a rival and other issues. So these are tricky. And without somebody to say, we will run it, keep it, clean it, let people in, and run the bookings that way, I think we've got a bit of a problem because I mean, I know I've sort of half volunteered to do it, and if it was simply a matter of knowing who got it that week and giving them the key to the padlock, but I know it will end up being a miler. So Home Pride aren't saying
No.
But they're the obvious organisation, but I do feel that they're so driven in their view of things that they're not necessarily open to other ideas, perhaps as much as they might be.
It doesn't feel like a veg box type of location, does it, really?
No. And you've also got the other side of Homeburg, of course. There's an area there where vegetables can be left.
Yeah.
You know,
That already happens.
How's the phone box going? What's just on there?
well, that's not ours. That belongs to, is it West Yorkshire Transport Partnership, and it's ready to be kitted out, but they've still not done that.
Right, okay.
I mean, do you want to defer it, but leave it with an action for me to follow up with this other person? And
We could put something on maybe in the newsletter saying like any ideas, any suggestions, or do we want to look like
it's
certain
volunteers
ideas?
to run it as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Something we can do, isn't it?
You know, Tom, from reading John's report, in the other villages where they're just used as libraries and stuff, they pretty much look after themselves,
They
don't
do,
they? And
yeah.
I'm assuming there's somebody in the village who now and again just goes and
Yeah.
titibates it, but it's not a big undertaking, whereas this in the town centre,
Mm.
The
I
one
think
that
the problems that we've had in the toilets, you know,
The one that I'm most familiar with is the one in Oldfield, but it's a different level of potential usage, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, you can see the one in the middle of on Firth on a Friday and a Saturday night. If it's not locked, you know, being used as a public convenience, really. You know.
I absolutely think that we need to strongly consider, you know, John's offer that they will unlock and lock it back up when they do the public toilets.
Yes.
It's the obvious.
When we do have a usage for it and decide what we're going to do, we've thought about we can make it into a little museum for them. That's an idea. And contact the Civic Society and see what they want to, see what they think. They're willing to put some information boards up there about Ramford history. Maybe a small wine exhibition kind of thing. I don't know.
well, we talked about different festivals using it, but again, we've not, I say we, as if this never actioned, but they've not even been asked if that's something they'd use anyway, is it? You know, the Folk Festival might say, well, that we've already got enough on trying to do the tourist shop window now and doing that as well, we haven't got. But if you want to leave it with me to cast around the regular festival users, people like the Civic Society, Home Pride obviously,
But the festivals that are like
River Connection to
the folk festival with one weekend, the food festival with another weekend. Then you've got the arts festival doing bits and pieces throughout the year, but then it's really not used a lot of the time. So it's
because they're only going to want it for a couple of weeks. And there's commercial people, but then it's a whole different thing. If
are we allowed to do that though? Are we
well,
allowed
if
to
you-
do it right now
well,
commercially? Or
what would you do with the money, even if Slimming World said we'll back from it for 2 weeks and
Put some post stuff in it, something like that. Well,
but it's not very good because of the nature of the windows.
yes,
They just go straight down the pallet fence.
Yeah,
That's what people do.
you could sort of fit the car sticker size acrylic kind of signage in, but that would be about it in the windows.
It
So
doesn't really.
it's another notice board to maintain and take the out-of-date stuff up and people have already got really good notice boards for free because you just staple it to that pallet fence by the bins.
Maybe something we have to get creative about, or actually do some research each, do a bit of Google one and look at what people are doing.
Yeah.
And don't do it
Well, that's why Adele said to me, speak to this other guy, because he's done loads of little mini events, but that maybe they're an art organisation, you know, that actually are a lot more creative, really.
People can do that, but there are. We could approach the artists that do the thing that the.
I guess you're just wanting a decision in Elgin, really.
Well, what would be quite good is if we could have a decision about the veg box bit, because if it's definitely not going to be that, at least I can say it is not going to be that.
I've got an idea. Why don't we make it an art box? So the veg box, we've got the art box, and then we ask local people like who we do like exhibitions and stuff like that, local artists, if they want to put pictures up of their exhibitions and change it every 2 or 3 months, something like that. But then it's costing us £2 a day to open and close it. Is that worthwhile money that we're spending? I don't know.
I think we haven't got any firm ideas, but I think we're all in agreement that it's not going to be a veg box.
In fact, if we did an art box and we like kind of display things where they can put the pictures inside it and lock it up, well, we need to lock it and close it every night.
I think that's the benefit of having it is, if it's something like a library or a veg box, the door's got to be open and then you've got a problem. If it's somebody putting up display posters or putting up a little puppet show that just look like a Christmas tableau, that type of thing,
Keep it locked, but have
then it's
something
locked, isn't
inside.
it? So we only need to pay, even I could run down and lock it and give them the key and get the key.
Oh, do you mean so that it stays locked all the time? And doesn't go to
Well, I personally would rather trial something where it's mostly locked all the time, unless somebody's with it.
and then use people displaying things on the glass and different things and advertising. That's interesting, yeah? It's a cheap way of doing it.
Maybe Rachel and the Christmas team might do a little Christmas tableau in there, and you know that would be a nice little pilot to see what works. So I'd be tempted to pilot it with known people like that.
Should we speak to Rachel?
I mean, I'm happy to take, if you want to leave it with me to take forward for a pilot, but I don't think, particularly when we've already got another veg box scheme in the town centre, I don't see the benefit, and it's very seasonal.
Yeah. So no veg box and Doug's to explore
Yeah. And I'll
other
speak to-
possibilities.
That's great.
Garside buildings, next item, updates. Building control is to be arranged to inspect the installation of 3 smoke alarms and running man emergency light on the front door of the unit by the tenants. No further requests have been received for the Service Provision Committee to further specific improvement change of the Garside retail unit, and no other works have been carried out. Clerk to report further.
And there is nothing further to report. So I've got a meeting with the leaseholder on Thursday. I'll touch base with her on any future plans she's got, but I'm not expecting her to be asking the committee to consider any new signage or anything at the moment.
I've not been in there for the shop for ages, really. Are you a regular visitor, Tom?
I went in on, I spoke to her on Sunday, and I asked her if you'd been busy for the folk festival. She said, it's not great by the sounds of it, but probably shouldn't really say. I think it's more, you're going to speak to Jen about some things this week, and go from there. It's a bit sensitive, I suppose.
Okay, next item is Stocks minibus provision. It's sometimes since the Parish Council contributed to the local minibus provision was reviewed at any depth by the Service Provision Committee. A new Parish Council is due to be installed May next year. This would be an opportune time to review the current arrangement and routes with input from Stocks and negotiated a fresh agreement. A contract with Stocks to last the lifetime of the parish of the council could be considered for 22-23 by the Service Provision Committee. The provision is currently in place, being maintained until then. Clerk to report.
Yeah, just to see if any clarification of that is needed. So with the new parish council coming in May 2023, that would seem to be a good time to review the contract with Stocks. But I just sort of wanted to
I think
gauge.
that's...
But the only problem is it's sort of, if Stocks work to a financial year, they probably need to know on the 1st of April if they're operating, and our council doesn't get elected till May. So I absolutely agree with the principle of what we're trying to achieve. I think that's a really sensible way. But are Stocks tied into a financial year? Or could we agree within a timeline when we make a decision that fits in with that?
Yeah, and the fact that you as a committee will be making decisions about your budget at the next Service Provision Committee meeting for 23-24, that will be covered that first year.
Right,
But it's taking a longer view at the contract, I suppose.
Okay. Tom?
We might have to just have a meeting with them to discuss how the numbers are, how busy they are. It might be that the money needs to go up to them if fuel bills have been recently quite volatile. So it might just go with having a meeting with them. They do come to speak to us fairly often, but we haven't seen them for a couple of years, I don't think. So it might be useful to know that the user figures as well for the different routes. Because I think there's always ways we can tinker the routes. Like one of the things that always bugs me about the minibus is it doesn't go to Scots. It's not Scots, sorry, it doesn't go to Honley. It doesn't go to Honley. Honley is a big part of the Home Valley, and you've probably got a lot of people there who would probably want to use the minibus. Like to go to Wentworth or just there's not even minibus that go into the village of Honley anymore, is it? They all stop at the bottom. So I think there may be some routes which aren't as busy as they used to be. I think the route on Royds Avenue near where I live is going to get more people using it now because the main bus isn't going on there anymore. Look at the first bus. So people will be using that. That might get better.
And is that because they've diverted or changed the route? Or?
It changed the route before. We used to send the big buses round, but there were cars parked at the side of the road, and it was too narrow for them. There was stuff in like windmills and stuff like that, having problems getting past. Too narrow, but our bus is fine for it because it's small, isn't it?
Yeah.
So there's things we could probably just do having a bit of an update. And I always think there's ways we can maybe improve routes and make things a bit better.
Is there merit in us meeting them not attending a formal meeting, but a couple of volunteers from this committee meeting with them, and then report it? Because it'd be useful to have that meeting to report back. We need to make a decision anyway for one financial year, don't we, by the sounds of it, but as existing councillors.
At the next service provision meeting.
Yeah,
so,
which is
yeah.
3 months away.
Well, not that long.
February, isn't it?
Because I mean,
Is that the next one?
I've only got
No,
anecdotal
budget
views,
setting
but I
meeting in
worry
November.
that I just don't. That bus comes past my window and I don't see anybody on it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Sometimes
I'm just really concerned that we're spending a lot of money on something that is underused.
And we're supposed to be climate change as well, and there's buses driving around with nobody on it. I see it like that sometimes, but then I was felt it better this weekend. I saw it a few times and it was going past and it put about 5 or 6 people on it, some of them did. So that's why I'd be interested to see the patronage of them. Because especially during COVID, they were driving around with nobody on all the time.
Yeah.
And it was a bit weird and a bit of a waste of time. But I'd be interested to see now if the numbers are going up or if there's things we can do to make it better.
So would you be able to liaise with Stotts and see whether or not they might be able to
Yeah.
meet with? I'm quite happy to meet with
I'm
somebody.
quite happy to meet with them because I've done quite a bit with buses before.
So us three basically.
And then we'll try and get that in before the next meeting and tell them that we obviously need to make a decision, at least another year's decision. I mean, I think we all understand that.
Okay. Projects. Update regarding the dog waste strategy. One new dispenser has been installed at Crown Bottom car park at the suggestion of Home Pride. Several dog waste bag dispensers have been repainted and repaired in rock holes. Item Q. 40 laminated vinyl stickers for the dog waste bag dispensers are currently being attached to the dispensers. The group of volunteers who keep the dog waste bag dispensers stocked up continue to do a great job across the whole valley. Clark to report.
Got nothing much else to report really, apart from how I've updated you there on that particular one. No sort of new developments. apart
Noted.
from-
Next item, removal of Sharps Bean bike lockers from Holmfirth Centre. The Sharps Bean cemented into pavement near Holmfirth public toilets have been removed and no further correspondence has been received regarding this. However, the two vandalised bike lockers in the car park adjacent to toilets have been removed. The clerk formally wrote to Mark Scar, Interim Service Director Highways, Kirklees Council, about the Sharps Bean on 19th of April. Clark.
Yes, so we've had good progress with the bike lockers, they've gone. But the Sharps bin, you don't seem to be getting anywhere on. Are there any further actions you want me to take? Do you want me to contact Mark Scar again and ask for an update regarding what's happening about the Sharps bin or any other actions?
When I was there on Sunday, there's a bin on the left which was full of cigarettes. Is that the Sharps bin people putting them in there, or is that the cigarette bin separate? There's one on the left and then there's another one on
It's
the right.
sort of it's to the left.
To the left and the front of it.
Yeah.
But there's another one on the right as well, which is like a cigarette bin in it. There's loads of cigarettes like that. Probably that's looked ugly as well, and a bit of a mess.
If it's our wall, not that I'm not saying we shouldn't really pay for this if the council's put it there and we ask them to remove it, they should remove it. But if you're not getting anywhere, is it really difficult
It's
to
not
move?
the wall.
Is it concreted?
It's concreted into the floor.
It's like
Our
it's in
floor,
the highways.
council
It's
floor.
highways, so
So we're not
that's the issue.
So we've got to ask their permission to do anything anyway, haven't we? So
Yeah. And also because it is a Sharps bin, I think it would need some sort of specialist removing.
do people actually put Sharps in there?
No,
I'm assuming it's for
it's obsolete,
syringes.
it's not used.
No.
John has seen
Yeah,
some stuff,
anything
material
that's
in there
in
before. John's seen some stuff in there before. But that's, I mean, I
It
prefer it.
doesn't get emptied, so it's full now.
So who would not, in the past, who has emptied it then?
Presumably Kirklees.
if they ever got around to emptying it, if they ever even told the person that they installed it.
Because I think probably what would be a step, wouldn't it, would be if they emptied it and then somehow we asked John to seal it up so it can't be used anymore.
Well, it's just
But if
improved.
it's their furniture on their highway, it's their.
Or is it theirs? Is it their
Well,
furniture?
if it's there,
Okay.
yeah, it's there. No, we just want it moved because it's unsightly in the way and it's not being used.
Is there anything that the Kirklees Ward councils could we write to them and ask them if they'd be willing to intervene?
Well, I mean, to be honest, that they all say, and I'm sure that but that's how we escalate it. If as a citizen I've got nowhere with council officers, then you escalate it to your councillors. And I think if you say that how long we've been trying to resolve this, and the fact that there's a sharp spin there that's clearly not even being emptied by the authority, that's a liability for them anyway.
Okay, is that alright?
That's fine.
It's like this, it's just like a great bin there.
Is that it? So is that on Google Maps?
Yeah, that's Google Maps,
So
yeah.
where's the thing that you're on about?
That's the cigarette bin there, no.
Right, so it's
I suppose we could take that off ourselves, because I don't know why that's there.
So
It looks scruffy.
it's in between the toilet and Monty's loft then?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just there, but it's separate to our building. But, like I say, it's a bit weird just being there, isn't it? And there's that other bin just there, so if people did want to...
So were public toilets sort of a bit of a mecca for IV drug users, was it?
I think there would have been
There was just
You-
I used to be an English exchange worker. There was a period in history when everybody was putting sharp spoons everywhere for
Okay.
and they never got used by most reviews.
And they kind of put those like UV.
Yeah, there's all sorts of things on it, but then it was never followed through. It was just, so I just think it's part of the legacy of
Okay.
good intention.
Okay. We'll move on to the.
We could chase him up then, just
That's
ask
the
him
next
about it
bit.
again, see if we can remove it.
Okay, right. I'm going to move on to the next bit. Installation of free bike repair station and possible siting of a bike rack adjacent to the Home Firth public toilets. Hope Pride has brought to the attention of the clerk the possibility of having a free bike repair station installed and suggested that it could be fixed to the wall of the Home Firth public toilets where the old bike lockers were placed. The clerk has walked the area with the maintenance contractor. There is space there, and being adjacent to the car park and very central, it seemed like a good position. There's room for a vandal-proof bike rack, bike lock rails to be fitted to this space as well, should it be desired. The committee is asked to consider how it would like to proceed with the matter. Well, it seems like a really good idea, really, Trevor. It's like a bike pump, isn't it? That's kind of like one of those sort of stereotype bike pumps, isn't it?
Yeah, I have thought since this could be something to refer to the Climate
I agree.
Emergency Standing Committee.
Words out of my mouth.
Yeah, there's no provision in the service provision budget for this. There is provision for transport projects within the SESC budget.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Let's do that then.
Yeah, great.
great.
Can I just put one other thing for the notes? I saw one of these. I thought I actually raised it at Parish actually months ago, if not years ago. Outside the Anglers Rest in Bamford, there's a much better vandal-proof screw to the wall device. I just think somebody needs to research. There must be a few of these things on the market.
Yeah.
And somebody's going to have to cost it up and look at various other options, aren't they?
It's the fact that it's a free option.
It's
Oh, is it a free one?
yeah, it's
So
just
it's
trans,
the-
isn't it? That's going to
the fixing
cover the
of it
cost.
would cost, but it's free.
Actually, when it says free, it's not. I thought it meant it was free to the user. So you mean it's actually free to us to?
Yeah,
yeah.
Right.
just the installation costs.
Right.
Okay.
Well, so,
Otherwise,
yeah, but that committee is a much better place to.
Okay, so a meeting has been arranged. Home Firth Valley Youth Service. A meeting has been arranged by Margaret Dale at the Tech on the 14th of September to consider youth provision in Home Firth. Clerk to report.
Actually, Doug's was there would probably want to report rather than me. All I can say, all I'll say at the moment is this is referring back to comments that were made in the public session of the service provision meeting on the 13th of June. There is a need maybe to resurrect and promote the kind of coordination work that Kirklees Youth Alliance has done in the past. That was certainly one of the main themes of the meeting, and also the fact that any leadership on this needs to come from an umbrella body such as Kirklees Youth Alliance, rather than just from one facility, which in this case was the tech that called the meeting. But Doug's will be able to say more.
Yeah, I think you put that very well. I think the tech had called the meeting partly because they've got space that could be used by youth projects. And one of the things that was fed back by Kirklees Youth Alliance and me and others is one of the problems is there already is a number of youth facilities in the area, including Cafe 100 Phoenix Youth Club, and even Lonely Village Hall, which was originally a youth club as well. The problem is, as we've seen tonight, there's not enough money to fund the youth activities that happen there. So everybody welcomes more youth activity, and it may be some stuff that could happen at the tech, but really we need a joined up strategy for the Home Valley for youth work, which is what Kirklees Youth Alliance sort of hold the ring for. And Susan was there from Kirklees Youth Alliance, and I think if we can get all the youth delivery projects, including the tech, if they've got youth projects in there, to work together to almost come up with a plan of these are what we think are the priority youth projects in the valley, and this is how they can be funded going forward. And then the parish has got a key role to play in that, as we've done tonight. But it needs joining up and leading, and I think the meeting agreed, and I think Susan agreed, that it really is probably best to be Kirklees Youth Alliance. But the unfortunate thing about the meeting was there was a lot of officers there from the council and people like me that were all paid to be enablers, but there wasn't anybody there who was actually delivering youth work in the valley. So it missed its whole target audience. Because it was probably chose a meeting on a Tuesday afternoon and didn't work for the main stakeholders.
Okay, well I suppose that
It was good that we were there.
that's just to know then, isn't it? Right, okay, right. The penultimate item is renewal of the future tendering and maintenance and home for public toilets contracts. Putting the maintenance contract out to tender as a recommendation from our independent auditor. Approval of the tendering and selection of contracts is in the terms of reference of the Finance and Management Committee. The drawing up of a contract and tendering process is new to the clerk. Both the clerk and deputy clerk are involved in training in procurement on the 8th of November 2022. A new parish council is due to be installed next May. A 4-year contract to last the lifetime of the council. It could be considered in the summer of 2023, with the contractual arrangements currently being in place rolled over until then. CS for renewal of contracts for this year. Clerk to report.
It's taken a while to get a grip on this, so apologies, because it's come up one way or another in agenda items for this committee. I've had a long conversation with Rich about it. The more I've looked into it, the more complex it seems to have gotten. So, for the moment, I am just suggesting that while we're in this sort of, we're stuck between a rock and a hard place, it's a recommendation for our independent auditor. Of course, we want to move to having a contract to put out to tender. But my view would be, my advice would be at the moment, both Rich and I need further training in procurement before we can take this forward with confidence. And as we've got that booked in November, to renew the way it's being done, these sort of annual contracts with John for this coming year, but then getting the contractual and tendering arrangements in place to take it forward in the summer.
Yeah,
I agree.
I propose that.
Yeah, I agree.
So when you redo it, you've got plenty of time to decide whether it should be split into 4 or 5 contracts.
Exactly.
Or
Exactly.
but at the moment, we've got something that works. We all know what's that. We're not overly concerned, but obviously legally these things should be refreshed, and let's just keep it going, ticking on now until we can do it properly.
Yeah.
I like that.
Okay, the last item is publicity. Items for publicity. Members are invited to suggest items for publicity arising from the current work of the Service Provision Committee. To note suggestions for aspects of the work of the Service Provision Committee. Service Provision Committee.
Publicising grants given.
Yeah.
And that's a bit tricky with the major.
Can't do.
You can say we welcome you, we're pleased to be funding Christmas trees.
Yeah, Christmas trees.
Is it too early to talk?
Well, we can't just say that yet, because we're at the green regular leaf curve leaf aren't we, for the leaf of that.
And I guess,
So,
go on, sorry Tom.
there is stuff like that, isn't there? Like, it's like Christmas trees in the grants once it's gone through full council.
I mean, between now and the next SP committee meeting, there's going to be the library, isn't there? So,
Yeah, definitely.
so a lot of fireworks starting.
Don't know the curse in that one.
Great.
I think that's it then. Is there unless somebody has anything else that they?
No.
Okay, you okay?
Lovely,
Jane?
that's great, thank you.